Good afternoon. Welcome to today's live-streamed ordinary full council meeting coming from the Guildhall Council Chamber. As mentioned at the last meeting, as Deputy Lord Mayor, I will be chairing today's council meeting in the absence of the Lord Mayor, who is attending the 40th anniversary events in the Falkland Islands. I would first like to welcome the Lord Mayor's chaplain, Reverend Bob Mason, for prayers.
May we pray. Eternal and ever-faithful God, whose purposes are certain to be fulfilled, hear our prayer as many of our city prepares to celebrate the greatest event in human history, the coming of your Son, Jesus Christ. Keep us mindful that he came in humility to serve and not to be served, and give us all that same willing spirit of selfless service. Keep in our minds that Christ came in poverty and had a heart for the poor and disadvantaged, and give us that same spirit of kindness and compassion. Keep in our minds that Christ came as a healer of the sick and suffering, and give us that same concern for those who are ill in body and mind, the troubled, and those who struggle with addictions, especially at this time of year. Please bless the work of carers and the many local organisations supporting those of our city who find this season financially demanding and emotionally difficult. Guide this meeting, we pray. Grant careful consideration and sound judgment, that debate will be wholesome and decisions well considered for the good of the city and the well-being of its residents. For Christ's sake, Amen.
Thank you very much, Reverend Mason. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but we understand if you have to leave. Please be seated. I want to draw your attention to the COVID and other winter virus advice provided. The Director of Public Health would like to remind us that the Chief Medical Officer is still advising people to continue to follow the regular hand washing, face coverings, keep space of 2 meters, ventilate rooms guidance when meeting people inside, as we are now into the winter period. This will reduce the spread of coughs, colds and other viruses, including COVID-19, that is still circulating in the city. We are expecting this to be a difficult winter for the NHS and our own care services, so just a gentle reminder that in order to reduce the risk of catching and passing winter viruses, we should all follow these preventative measures while moving around the Guildhall. With regards to members of the public attending to make deputations to the council, the webcast will not show them on the camera, but we will hear their words. For the attention of those members of the public wishing to record proceedings, the council's rules prohibit the filming, photographing or recording of members of the public, including those making deputations. Evacuation procedures. If the continuous fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the room and public gallery by the stairwells. Do not attempt to use the lifts. Please assemble at the turning circle at the end of King Henry Street, past the University's Park building. Just to remind members wishing to speak, you simply press the talk button on the unit in front of you and I will activate your microphone when I call you to speak. I will also turn off your microphone. Moving to agenda item 1. Members, if you have any disclosable pecuniary interests or personal prudential interests to declare in the items on the agenda before us, can you please indicate? There are none. Item 2. Minutes. Is it proposed by Councillor Vernon Jackson and seconded by Councillor Bosher that the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on the 8th of November 2022 previously circulated in the agenda be confirmed as a correct record? The minutes agreed? Apologies. Apologies for absence for the meeting have been received for reasons just mentioned. Well, that's not really making any sense. From Councillor Atwell, Councillor Corkery and Councillor Mellor. Also, Councillor Norton will be arriving around 4 p.m. due to a long-standing work commitment. Are there any other Apologies.
Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Lee Hunt, who's not well.
Any others? No. As previously notified,
Deputy Lord Mayor, my apology, it is not an apology for people being absent, but as colleagues will know, the Solent Freeport has been agreed and announced today. I have just had a phone call from the BBC who are wanting to make sure there is a Portsmouth angle in their broadcast about that tonight, so at some point I may have to disappear for a few minutes to go and do a quick interview to make sure that Portsmouth is in the broadcast, for which my apology, and I hope that's not causing any disrespect to anybody here for anything, but the Freeport's an important thing that I think potentially is very helpful for us.
Thank you, Councillor Vernon Jackson. I'll let you go when you need to. As previously notified, the former Lady Mayoress Iris Warner sadly passed away peacefully on the 20th of November. Iris was 99 years old. Her husband, Fred, who was Lord Mayor in 1985-86, died in August 2021. Family intend to have a private funeral. Our thoughts are with Iris's family at this sad time. Finally, as you will see, I have James Harris supporting me today in preparation for Stuart's previously notified imminent retirement. Councillor Vernon Jackson.
Well, I just think all members would want to record our thanks to Stuart for the work that he's done to support us, his good humour when sometimes we are not in good humour, and to thank him for everything he's done for us, and wish James well sitting in the hot seat.
Thank you to Councillor Vernon Jackson. Deputations from the public under Standing Order 24.
There are 3 deputations for this meeting, excluding the petition item at item 7, and those will be dealt with as part of that item, details of which have been circulated on the green sheet in the chamber. Can I ask Catherine Rimington to make your deputation on item 12C? You have 4 minutes, and the bell will sound when there is 1 minute to go, and again at the end of your time. Thank you.
Addressed you, we have been vindicated by a Parliamentary and Health Service Ombudsman finding in July 2021 that the DWP had committed maladministration in failing to inform us that we would have to wait up to a further 6 years for our state pensions. The Ombudsman has encouraged the government to be proactive in resolving this issue, but still we wait. Since 2015, more than 210,000 1950-born women have died without seeing justice. Nationally, 1 WASPy woman dies every 14 minutes waiting for compensation. That is shocking, sad, and totally avoidable. We could give numerous examples of hardship endured by local WASPy women struggling to cope with thousands of pounds shortfall in expected income. The anguished woman in poor health wondering how she would cope with another 6 years in her physically demanding cleaning job. Another of our members suffered severe mental health consequences after finding out by chance she would have to wait another 6 years for her state pension. Her retirement plans ruined, she had to adjust to a very different future from the one she had expected. Another, living on universal credit, felt humiliated by job search requirements to keep applying for jobs that she knew, as a woman in her mid-60s, she had no chance of getting. And then there are the impacts on our local community through the loss of skills available to the voluntary sector and support to families through informal care arrangements. The last available figures from November 2021 estimated there were 9,160 WASPy women in Portsmouth. That's grandmothers, mothers, daughters, sisters and aunts whose contribution to the city in unpaid work is enormous. All this is against a backdrop of a gender pension gap that the government predicts won't close until 2040 at the earliest. It is a gap created by historic unequal pay and private pension opportunities, just two obstacles to a secure retirement that we faced in our working lives, and it is a gap evidenced by far more women than men relying on the state pension for their retirement income. It's difficult to accept state pension equality as the destination when it's not been integral to the journey. Yet we've accepted equalisation of state pension ages and are not asking for women's state pension age to go back to 60. What we want is compensation for the failure to communicate life-impacting changes to a cohort of women least equipped to withstand the financial shock without adequate warning. It's a matter of trust. Throughout our lives, we've done all that was asked of us and more. Our campaign has grown in strength since it began, and regardless of individual circumstances, we have all suffered because of this maladministration. As far as the government is concerned, we are invisible, but we are visible to members of this chamber, and we ask you to see us as we are. Please stand with Portsmouth WASPy women and vote for the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Brimington. Can I now ask Barbara Weil to make your deputation on item 12C? You have 4 minutes and the bell will sound when there is 1 minute to go, and again at the end of your time. Thank you.
I thought that I would tell you how it feels to be affected by the increase in state pension age. I don't think that I fully realised the implications for me until several friends received their pensions in 2010. They were among the last women to retire, aged 60. Although I was only 5 years younger, it struck me that I had another 10 years to wait until I could collect my pension. This seemed unreasonable, but worse was to come. The news of the 2011 Pension Act came at a bad time for me. I'd had treatment for throat cancer during that year, which fortunately was successful. I had returned to work as I'd gone down to half pay, which was before my doctors actually advised me to, and I'd exhausted my savings. I was divorced and living alone with a mortgage to pay, and I can honestly say that I was as worried about my financial situation as I was about my health. My date of birth put me just outside the transition period for the 1995 Act, so I'd assumed that I wouldn't be much affected by any future increase in retirement age. I was devastated to find that the existing transition period was to be accelerated. I wouldn't be able to collect my pension until I was 66 years old. I felt that this was so unfair that women who had already had 5 extra years to wait should now have another year added. My health had been affected by the effects of my treatment, and it became obvious to me that I would struggle to work until I could collect my state pension. I downsized to a flat so that I could reduce my living costs, and when I was 60, I took my occupational pension and worked part-time. A year later, when voluntary redundancies were being offered, I took early retirement. I still had just over 4 years to wait for my state pension, so financially this was a significant decision. It has proved to be the right one, though, as my health has continued to deteriorate since leaving work. Conditions were very different during my early working life. My occupational pension is small, as it was never considered a priority when money was short while bringing up young children. My age group didn't have free nursery hours or tax credits that enable women to keep working and paying contributions. I never expected that my occupational pension would be my sole income. I was relieved when I eventually received my state pension last year, as my savings were very depleted. I wondered if I would start to feel less angry about the increase in pension age when I received my pension, but I didn't. Joining Solent WASPy has validated my feelings, as I've found that many members feel the same. It's been wonderful to join this community of women fighting for justice. It's been estimated that someone in my position who waited the full 6 years for her pension has lost £50,000. However, we're not asking for the restoration of the lost pension. We've had a moral victory when the Ombudsman found the DWP guilty of maladministration. But now we want fast and fair compensation. As a resident of Portsmouth, I hope that you can support our campaign.
Thank you, Ms Weld. Can I ask Honorary Alderman Alan Burnett to make your deputation on item 12C? You have 4 minutes and the bell will sound when there's 1 minute to go, and again at the end of your time. Thank you.
Deputy Lord Mayor, members, Portsmouth Pensioners Association would like to support this notice of motion and our colleagues, our WASPI colleagues, whose testimony you've heard. We came a year ago to support another notice of motion about the ageing population strategy and age-friendly city plan, and we've had some talks, but we haven't seen any plans yet, so we're looking forward to in the new year to that being taken forward. Portsmouth Pension Association, Pompey Pensioners if you want to call us that, we've been proud to collaborate with the WASPI campaign over several years, and this campaign is not just a stick to beat a government with, it's a campaign based on, in our opinion, on maladministration, as you've heard, and injustice. Now, I've sat down with 2 women who've been affected directly, as you've heard already today. One called Lynn and one called Claire last night, and I asked them about their experience. So I'd like to relay that to you at second hand. Both Pompey women. Lynn was brought up in Paulsgrove, now lives in Copner. Claire, Southsea and Eastleigh, lives in Eastleigh. Lynn worked for 47 years in a variety of different jobs. She left school at 15. She worked in a shoe shop. She was a publican at Steve's favourite pub. She did all sorts of jobs. She brought up a family. And Claire also worked in a number of different jobs in the city. Together they ran a business in the city until recently, distributing glass to nationwide. Both resourceful, hard-working Pompey women. Lynn thinks she might have got a letter because she was actually working at that time. Claire is adamant that she did not get any paper communications from the DWP, hence the maladministration that we've heard. I asked them about how much it had cost them, and they both thought something between £35,000 and £40,000 this age increase had cost them. They would have been that much richer had it not occurred. But they both agreed that equalisation of the age of pension was correct thing to do, but they've lost that amount of money and it has affected them in different ways. Lynn particularly made a very comment which moved me when I was hearing it. Her second husband, Graham, who actually worked for the council for many years, when he was working, she would have liked to, when he retired, she would have liked to spend more time with him, going on holidays and so forth. But she had to work. And when he became ill, and died actually, she would have liked to have also to been with him more during those days. And that comment struck me, as much as the financial side of it, how much, as the notice of motion says, how much it's affected people in their caring roles because their circumstances are such that they felt they had to work. So, Deputy Lord Mayor, thank you for hearing us. Portsmouth Pension Association would like to back this notice of motion. I hope you'll pass it. Thank you.
Councillor Smythe.
Thank you. I realise I've forgotten to declare an interest in this motion. I don't like sharing my age or date of birth with anybody in this chamber, but I'm definitely a waspy woman and very much in support of this.
Thank you, Councillor Smythe.
Thank you, Honourable Alderman Burnett. Can I ask you now, all, please, that you all retire to the above gallery if you wish to watch the proceedings, other than Miss Edwards, who will shortly be making a deputation in respect to the petition item. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. We've had Councillor Atkins and Councillor Mason. Do you have any declarations of interest? Councillor Atkins.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm not sure if it's a relevant declaration. Perhaps the City Solicitor could advise. I think my mother is waspy woman age.
Thank you, Councillor Atkins. Councillor Mason.
Apologies for being late, Deputy Lord Mayor. No declarations of interest to declare.
Thank you. That brings us to the end of deputations for this section of the meeting. Public questions.
There are none.
Item 6, appointments. As per the Green Sheets, recommended that the following changes to Liberal Democrat group seats be agreed. On the Scrutiny Management Panel, Councillor Abdul Kadir to replace Councillor Stuart Brown as a full member of the Scrutiny Management Panel, Councillor Stuart Brown to become a standing deputy. Housing and Social Care Scrutiny Panel, Councillor Ian Holder to replace Councillor Stuart Brown as a full member of the Housing and Social Care Scrutiny Panel, Councillor Stuart Brown to become a standing deputy. Are those changes agreed? Item 7, petition, public petitions. As set out on the agenda, the Council has received a petition seeking support for the Portsea Action Group and the local community to help to get GPs reinstated at the John Pounds Medical Centre and help resolve the barriers and blockages that is preventing this from happening. The Council's rules state that as the petition contains more than 500 signatures, it will be debated by full Council, if the lead petitioner so requests, and they do. The process will be the lead petitioner, Ms Deborah Edwards, will be given 6 minutes to present the petition. In accordance with the agreed arrangements, the administration will present its response to the petition via a proposer and seconder. The petition and the administration's response motion will then be discussed by councillors and the normal rules of debate will apply. I will now deal with the petition as presented.
Can I ask Ms Deborah Edwards, as lead petitioner, to present your petition? You have 6 minutes to present the petition and the buzzer will sound when there is 1 minute to go, and then at the end of your time. Thank you.
My Deputy Lord Mayor, members of the City Council, I am here on behalf of the Portsea community who have had a doctor's practice locally for many years in Portsea. With the amalgamations that have taken place, the local community who are old and infirmed or disabled now have to undertake a hazardous journey, having to take a bus and cross major roads with a substantial walk to get to the doctor's surgery. Many of our residents can't afford taxis. The premises are still there at John Pounds, and we ask for our doctors to be reinstated at Portsea. At the present time, for us in the community to get to see a doctor is not working. When we phone, we get cut off waiting in a queue. Very difficult to get a face-to-face appointment. We are relying on our local chemists to give advice. Recently, for example, we had an elderly person who put their prescription into the chemist on a Monday, which then they sent to Lake Road, which should have been back by the Wednesday. By the Friday, the elderly person had still not received his prescription back. The elderly person phoned Lake Road and was told by the person on the phone that they had lost prescriptions. Staff had left and now they had joined with Sunnyside, so they were very busy. This prescription was needed urgently for the elderly person's health and caused a lot of anxiety and upset. Since COVID, our surgery has let the community of Portsea down. By joining other practices, it has not benefited our community. I thank you for this opportunity to talk to you and hope you give this matter some serious consideration.
Thank you for your deputation, Ms Edwards. As there are no other deputations on this item, now could I ask you to please retire to the public gallery if you wish to stay for watch the rest of the meeting. Thank you.
Now, in respect of a proposed response from the administration to the petition, I have received signed notice of this from Councillor Winnington as proposer and Councillor Fazackley as seconder, which I understand is about to be circulated.
Formally proposed, Lord Mayor.
Is that seconded?
Formally seconded, Lord Mayor.
Do I have any amendments to the proposed response? Probably not. Just wait for that to go around to everyone. Does anyone have any amendments to the proposed response? The matter is now before the Council for debate. Councillor Adeniran.
Thank you, the Deputy Lord Mayor. Okay.
It's his first time. Come on, give him a chance. Come on. Deputy Lord Mayor, councillors, colleagues, and people from Portsea and other people in the gallery. Thank you so much for the petition coming here today. As has been circulated, the administration, on behalf of the City Council, is very pleased to accept this petition and recognises the situation as it is in Portsea, and we completely back the wish to have full GP services restored to Portsea. This has been a long-running circumstance at the John Pound surgery. This goes long before even GP services were withdrawn from there during the pandemic, and actually goes back to a long time of some difficulties in terms of the building and the lease and the dreaded NHS property services, which for those of you who have been around the council for some time might know is like drawing blood from a stone by dealing with them. So since the merger of the practices pre-pandemic, then during the pandemic there were GPs were withdrawn from John Pound's, and that was at the time done because of consolidation. We were told because of consolidation and making sure that the services for GPs in the area were able to continue in a COVID-safe manner. However, since then, we have not seen that full restoring of GPs at John Pound Centre, and that's really disappointing. However, things have not stood still. There have been organisations working with John Pound's to try and sort out these ongoing lease issues, and and also to make sure that we can get into a position whereby the practice that looks after John Pounds, the Island City practice as they are now, are able to then be able to move back and have GPs full-time staffing in John Pounds Centre Surgery. But it's taken a long time, and the people of Portsea have suffered. So I'd like to give particular thanks to the Portsea Action Group. They work extremely hard. I've known through colleagues going back from when we had the Lib Dem councillors for the area, and now the Labour councillors for the area, and also before that for the previous Labour councillors, that they work extremely hard for their area and making sure that they're heard. And it's really important that we have this opportunity, they have this opportunity to come to speak to us today and tell us about how they're feeling and what's going on. The interesting thing about Portsea is, actually, when you look at the size of their community, in terms of numbers, they shouldn't have the things they have. But we know that they need the things they have because they are a distinct community in our city. That is why the City Council has a housing office there. That's why the City Council has a library for them there. And that's why we have John Pounds Centre as a community centre. And that's why Portsea needs a GP surgery there, with GPs in there all the time. So there's lots of things going on in legal terms. You'll see in the response about lease negotiations, which is something that we have to legally do with the practice, but we are moving forward with that to the extent of the practice has now got a surveyor who is involved in that process, and we hope that that will move on as soon as possible. But also there's the community engagement side, and this is the most important point of this response. This is the most important point that we're doing, working with the practice, but doing within Health and Care Portsmouth, is actually getting those together and the stakeholders in that community to be able to make sure that they have their voice heard, not just through a petition, not just through talking to the councillors or other members of the council, but actually having a group that is there and able to go through there as well. So there is going to be the establishment of a Portsea working group. There's going to be a survey for local residents, listening events and a workshop and focus groups. They're also going to work with the Hive Portsmouth to investigate transport options in the meantime to get better access to Lake Roads. But we don't want that to be the only way, because we want that to be in Portsea. And this work is expected to take place between January and May 2023. So thank you again for the Portsea Action Group for this petition. Thank you for everyone who signed it. Thank you for coming here today and speaking to us and telling you how much this is affecting you. And I can absolutely commit that we, as the administration of the City Council, and I'm sure on behalf of the whole Council, we can say we support you and we want to have GPs back in Portsea. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Whittington. My apologies for the skipping of section of the script. That's his fault. Now the matter is before the Council for debate. Councillor Adeniran.
Thank you, my Deputy Lord Mayor. Yes, I just want to say something about the petition from the Portsea Action Group. As one of the ward councillors for Portsea, I share the concerns of residents about the failure to reinstate GP services in their community, as we have been repeatedly promised. Working with fellow ward councillors, Costimelo and Kakokri, we have been supporting Portsea Action Group to lobby the practice, the council who own the building and the NHS to reinstate GP services in Portsea as a matter of urgency. Unfortunately, despite numerous meetings being organized and email thread created, little progress appears to be being made. It is time for all involved to get round the table, accept some collective responsibility for getting this sorted, and reach a conclusion that delivers for the people of Portsea the local health service they deserve and need. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Adeniran. Councillor Smythe.
Well done for coming and reminding us about this really important issue. I was on the Health and Wellbeing Board, I think 3 or 4 years ago, and certainly the whole matter came up at that point. And I do urge, I'm grateful for this proposal, Councillor Winnington, but I urge the Health and Wellbeing Board, where people from agencies across the city meet, to take their role more seriously, because they do have the power to put a lot of pressure on people to make sure this problem is resolved quickly and more quickly than it has been resolved. Just to say that I met a friend in the street today and she said, did I know there were only 39 GPs in Portsmouth? I do think your problems are a tip of a very, very big iceberg. I don't meet anybody out in the street nowadays who hasn't found it almost impossible to get a GP appointment. So I would urge you to take this on, and we need to I know we all agree on this matter, but we need to make much more fuss and get some action from the NHS, from our joint work as commissioners of NHS services in Portsmouth, to resolve this problem for all the citizens of the city. It's the lowest is in any city, I gather, per head of population.
Thank you, Councillor Smythe. I have no other requests to speak, so I will call on the response proposer, Councillor Winnington, to sum up.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor, and thank you for the contributions from Councillors Adeniran and Councillor Smythe. I think it's absolutely right, Councillor Smythe, to show that this is a part of the issue we have in the city in terms of our number of GPs, and within the response to there, it does actually mention about that obviously the recruitment issue is one which is very difficult generally, and obviously in this particular case it has that particular impact on there as well. I think the issues in particular about the legal issues, because of the involvement of NHS Property Services, and as you said, this came up many years ago, as I alluded to, and it's one of the reasons why Councillor Fazakerley seconded this response, because of course it's been going on when I was previously Cabinet Member, while Councillor Fazakerley was Cabinet Member, and then with me as Cabinet Member again. That this has been just an ongoing, really difficult situation, and legally extracting NHS Property Services to start with was something that was very difficult. I think the really unfortunate thing is it kind of coincided with the start of the pandemic. I think we would be in a much better place now if the pandemic hadn't got in the way, and then it had that impact in terms of consolidation of services at that time, which unfortunately hasn't unravelled in the way we would have liked since then. And of course everything got put back. But I think we're on that right approach now. I think the engagement side of it is the most important thing, because that will give an ongoing voice to the people of Portsea, rather than, as I said, it has to be a bit ad hoc. But that was really a part of that, and PAGA at the part of that, Portsea Action Group at the heart of that, to be able to make sure that the people of that area of our city have their say on an ongoing basis. And not only about GP services there, but also about other things that affect their community around social care, health, and other matters. I hope everyone will support this today. As I say, important issue, is indicative of some of the issues that we have in other parts of the city as well, and of course it does feed into that ongoing large piece of work that we're doing within the city on GPs, the summit we've had in August, and then that we will be having another one in the new year as well, and getting more people around the table for that one. But it is one of those things we're having these ongoing conversations with, because the more GPs we have in the city, the more places we're able to provide for, and it will give less, I'm not going to say an excuse, but less reason to not have GPs in all areas of the city that need it. And at the moment, Portsea is one of those places. So thank you so much, everyone. I hope you can support the petition response, and thanks again to PAG and the people of Portsea and everyone else who signed the petition.
Thank you, Councillor Whittington. Council will now vote on the response. All those in favour? Any to the contrary? Any to the contrary? Couldn't see any. It's unanimous. That's carried. Any abstentions? No, that's carried. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That concludes item 7. We'll now move on to item 8, urgent business. All members have been previously notified of the urgent business for today's meeting, namely a report from the Chief Executive, which has been previously circulated regarding the review of political proportionality on committees and panels. In response to the recommendations set out in the report, I have received a written proposal from Councillor Vernon Jackson, seconded by Councillor Gerarda, which has already been circulated in the Chamber. Could I ask Councillor Vernon Jackson formally to move the proposal?
Happy to move.
And could I now ask the proposal is formally seconded by Councillor Gerarda?
Happy to second.
Would you like to propose properly, Councillor Vernon Jackson?
I think I have. No?
I was just seeking clarification.
No. But the matter is therefore open for debate.
So my understanding, my Lord Mayor, is that this is just a technical thing where the Labour group have gifted Councillor Julius Smythe one of their places on the planning committee, and that that seems sensible and agreed. I think there is a second issue, which I presume we will come to after that bit, which is in terms of the chairmanship. But I'm happy to be advised otherwise by Mr. Balfe.
Thank you, Councillor Vernon Jackson. So does anyone wish to debate that matter? No. We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you, everyone. I will now invite nominations for the position of Planning Committee Chair. Members, do I have any propositions for the position of Planning Committee Chair? Councillor Vernon Jackson.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. I happily propose Councillor Chris Atwell, looking at the proportionality in terms of chairs of committees on the council. Currently, the 9 Labour councillors have 3 chairs, the 13 Conservative councillors have 4 chairs, the 17 Liberal Democrats have 2, and the 3 Independents have 0. So in terms of proportionality, this would seem a sensible thing to make sure that our chairmanships are more reflective of the proportionality of the control of the council.
Thank you, Councillor Vernon Jackson. Do I have a seconder, please, for that?
Happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Horton. Councillor Heaney.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I would like to nominate Councillor Julius Smythe for the place of Chair of Planning, and I will say a few words, if I may, as well. Councillor Vernon Jackson talked about proportionality rules. We don't have any formal proportionality rules in the council, the way we operate. We have suggested this in the past, but it isn't operating. The position of many councillors is that we often try to choose the person who we think is best for the job. I've known my colleague Judith for 30 years. She has a huge amount of experience in both housing and planning. She has led work in the City Council on the city plan. She is known to be forensic in her examination of issues, and chairing the planning committee is a difficult job. I was sat on planning committee for many years when I was previously a councillor. It's hard work, and not without its challenges. And notwithstanding that Councillor Judith Smythe is no longer officially a member of the Labour Group, but I hope she will not continue to be in that position for very long, I think she has demonstrated the qualities necessary in order to be chair. And in fact, that was something that was endorsed by the Council in May, and I hope they will re-endorse that decision today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Heaney. Is there a seconder? Councillor Gerardo.
Happy to second. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor.
Are there any other nominations? All right, all those in favour of Councillor Chris Atwell becoming the chair? All those in favour of Councillor Smythe? Any abstentions? That concludes this item with Councillor Chris Atwell elected as chair of the Planning Committee.
We'd also now need to elect a vice chair, as we have no vice chair.
Oh.
And Chris Atwell was vice chair.
As Councillor Atwell was the vice chair, we will need to nominate.
Point of order. I don't know if the council in front of me had their vote counted correctly, because they put their hand up and then you went to abstentions. So I just want to check that the votes have been counted correctly.
Is that for Councillor Smythe? Before I went to abstentions. Do you count them? Adds up. 1 second. Yeah, they were included. Yeah. So we need nominations for vice chair. Gerald.
Can I propose Councillor Judith Smythe to be vice chair?
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Heaney.
I'd like to second Councillor Judith Smythe as vice chair of planning.
Thank you very much. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? All those in favour? Yeah. Everyone agreed on that. Nobody against that. Item 9. Recommendation from the Cabinet meeting held on the 22nd of November on Treasury Management Mid-Year Review 22-23. Members, we have a noting recommendation from the Cabinet meeting on the 22nd of November concerning the Treasury Management Mid-Year Review 2022-23, which has been previously circulated. I now propose to call the minute. If you wish to oppose the item, please indicate. Can I also remind everyone that any item to which no objection has been made will be deemed to have been approved. I call minute 140, Treasury Management Mid-Year Review 22-23. Not objected to. Thank you. On to item 10. Recommendation from Cabinet meeting held on the 22nd of November on Ocean Recovery Declaration Progress Update. Members, we have a noting recommendation from the Cabinet meeting on the 22nd of November concerning the Ocean Recovery Declaration Progress Update, which has been previously circulated. I now propose to call the minute. If you wish to oppose the item, please indicate. Can I also remind everyone that any item to which no objection is made will be deemed to have been approved. I call minute 135, Ocean Recovery Declaration Progress Update. Thank you. Moving on to item 11. Recommendation from Governance, Audits and Standards Committee meeting held on the 23rd of November on the Health and Wellbeing Board changed to terms of reference. Members, we have a recommendation from the Governance and Audits and Standards Committee meeting on the 23rd of November concerning the Health and Wellbeing Board changed to terms of reference, which has previously been circulated. I now propose to call the minutes. If you wish to oppose the item, please indicate. Can I also remind everyone that any item to which no objection is made will be deemed to have been approved? I call Government Audits and Standards Committee Minute 48, Health and Wellbeing Board, change of terms of reference. Yeah. Thank you. Moving on to item 12, notices of motion. We have 5 notices of motion before us today. As Councillor Corkery seconded motion A and has given apologies for the meeting, motion A subsequently falls under Standing Order 33 and will not be considered. Councillor Heaney.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Obviously under Standing Order 32 motions, but I'm going to ask for the indulgence of yourself and the Council to suspend standing orders in relation to this item in order to allow another seconder. The reason that I'm asking is because Councillor Corkery is ill. He was only aware that he was unable to attend the meeting late this morning. He has tonsillitis and therefore hasn't been able to come. And given that this is a motion jointly supported by 2 parties, I would like to request that standing orders are suspended in order to allow another seconder to be proposed, Lord Mayor. That's my request. Thank you.
Councillor Vernon Jackson.
Point of order. I'm sorry, this is the first I've heard. Personally, I'm proposing it. I'd like to debate it, but I think the standing orders are here for a reason. And my personal view is that we should debate this, but we should debate it when the standing orders allow, which is at the next meeting. It would have been useful to have had that conversation beforehand, so we had time to think about it. But I think the rules are clear, and my view is that unless there's a really exceptional reason, we should try to stick to the rules if possible.
I would like to put it to the Chamber, if that's all right. All those in favour of suspending standing orders? All those against? Any abstentions? That's clearly against. So that will go to the next full council meeting to be considered. We therefore move on to motion B. Is the motion concerning extending safe spaces for people in Portsmouth proposed by Councillor Gerarda and seconded by Councillor Smith? Councillor Gerarda.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Just to say, I do not propose this motion. Councillor Horton and I had conversations ahead of the meeting today, and I'm very grateful to her for coming to me about concerns that she had and ways that the motion could be improved. So we've agreed that we will take this out of today's council meeting and come back with a stronger motion at the next council meeting. And I would like to place on record my thanks to Councillor Horton for doing that. So, yeah, I don't move it today.
So it's not moved. Thank you, Councillor Gerarda. You guys are making this very easy on me. So moving on to motion C. Is the motion concerning supporting WASPy women in Portsmouth proposed by Councillor Fielding and seconded by Councillor Gerarda? Councillor Fielding.
Formally proposed.
Formally seconded, Councillor Gerarda.
Formally seconded, thank you.
I now call upon the proposer, Councillor George Fielding, to present and speak to his motion. Councillor Fielding.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Firstly, can I take this opportunity of thanking the women from Solent WASPy that attended outside the Guildhall and those who gave deputations today. It is through you we can hear firsthand your struggle against the inequalities you continue to face. As the motion states, the issue of the Women Against State Pension Inequality, or WASPy women, goes back as far as 1995, and successive governments of all colours have failed to address the burning inequality handed down to women born in the 1950s. Those women who have worked tirelessly only to find their state pension age was to be drastically increased until as late as 2012, giving those reaching the then retirement age of 60 just 1 year's notice of the impending 6-year increase, if indeed receiving notice at all, as has been experienced in many women's situations. It is estimated that at least 9,000 women are in fact affected by this issue in the Portsmouth area alone, as we've heard. They make up a small part of the 3.8 million women born in the 1950s that are directly affected by this change. And not only that, but we must also bear reflection on the more than 220,000 women, 1950s born women, who have died awaiting justice since the WASPI campaign began in 2015. Indeed, the COVID-19 pandemic further exacerbated their plight, with figures showing that 1 in 10 women who died during the pandemic were affected by the pension ageing inequality and lost both their state pension income and the opportunity to make alternative retirement plans as a result. As recently as July 2021, the Parliamentary and Health Service Ombudsman found in its review that the Department for Work and Pensions had failed in its duty to provide the public with as full information as possible. The DWP failed to make a reasonable decision about the next steps of its communications in August 2005 and delayed sending them until December 2007. The PHSO found that the DWP did not get it right, and its handling of the whole affair was considered a maladministration. This maladministration meant that an additional 28 months of further individual notices of changes could have been given to avoid even further injustices on these women. But what is the effect of these changes? Women who would normally be retiring at 60 would have been able to look after older relatives or partners, are unable to afford to do so, impacting directly on the adult social care sector. Women who would have retired earlier could have engaged in caring responsibilities for grandchildren rather than continuing to work, increasing the state burden on childcare. A wealth of voluntary services are missing out on crucial volunteers who would have been able to give their time freely rather than continuing to work. And as the cost of living crisis continues to rage with no sign of an end in sight, this is making their struggle even harder. So what is it these women want? Not to reverse the state pension age or seek the return of state pensions lost, nor are they opposed to equalisation of the state pension age. They are asking for fair and fast compensation on the injustices handed out to them. By supporting this motion today, you will be sending a message to the current government that Portsmouth City Council recommits our support to our WASPI women and to speed up the justice that they sorely deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fielding. Are there any amendments to this motion which will need to be proposed and seconded and circulated? Has it already been circulated? Councillor Pitt.
An amendment in my name, Lord Mayor.
Is Councillor Sanders seconding that?
Formally, and I reserve my right to speak later.
Thank you, Councillor Sanders. Would you like me to wait till it's circulated, Councillor Pitt? Call on Councillor Steve Pitt to propose the amendment.
Thank you very much, Deputy Lord Mayor. It's a very simple and straightforward amendment, but I think that the WASPI women absolutely and definitely need clarity, not just from the current government, who to date have seemed reticent in addressing this issue, but also the likely next government. And I don't think that just asking the current government to do something that it's shown it's not going to do is much use to anybody, whereas getting that commitment now from the leader of the Labour Party that this will be unequivocal support post the next general election is extremely important. I increasingly find myself living a long life and hearing all sorts of promises from various parties, including my own, at general elections that do not subsequently bear fruit for those who voted for them. I make no defence of mine, and I don't expect our Labour colleagues to make any defence of theirs, and therefore I see no reason why this amendment should be in any way controversial, and hopefully all members can support it.
Thank you, Councillor Pitt. The matter is now before Council to debate. I have no requests. Nobody? Sure, Councillor Gerarda.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor, and thank you to the Solent Waspy Group for coming today and for your deputations. I just wanted to speak on a personal account about the impact that this injustice has had on my mum, who was born in 1956. For background, my mum has been working similarly to some of the Waspy women that are here today from the age of 15 as an industrial sewing machinist. She has had over 45 years of working in a very repetitive job where she has unfortunately gained quite a number of physical health conditions as a result, things like arthritis in her fingers and tennis elbow, all sort of commensurate with the type of hard labour that you have when you do the role of seamstress. For decades she worked in Berristons on Gladys Avenue, formerly known as Sunlight Factory, doing a lot of repair work on various forms of garments, such as firefighters' garments. And if you can imagine, you know, they're fire retardant, very heavy garments, and from that she has basically sustained a number of injuries, but really important, crucial work to keep very important people in our city going. So she is somebody who was really desperately looking forward to 60, reaching pension age, because unfortunately she didn't even have a workplace pension. That wasn't really something that was promoted well. And like others here, she took time out to care for myself and my sister growing up as a child, so juggling all of those responsibilities as well. And the sort of physical exhaustion from her work meant that she just could not carry on. But unfortunately, she obviously received very little notice about the goalposts moving in terms of her pension, going up from 60 to 66. Again, like everyone's mentioned here, obviously nothing against the equalisation of pensions, that should obviously happen. But it was how it was handled so poorly by the government and with such little compassion and consideration. Not even something like thinking about other state benefits that those women might have been able to have access to, knowing in particular for the women on low incomes like my own mother, that they would really struggle financially. So that is absolutely appalling how it's been handled. Since the age of 60, my mum has really struggled financially, which has been absolutely heartbreaking to see. Because at that age in life, people should be able to enjoy themselves and use their free time as they wish. But her and along with other millions of women have really suffered. And all my mum's really wanted to do, bless her, is spend her retirement looking after grandchildren, and that's what she has done. But she's had to do that using her own savings and being really sort of hand to mouth throughout those last 6 years. But finally, actually just at this weekend, and it's so well timed for this motion, she finally turned 66. Woo, yay, happy birthday, Mum, in case you're listening. Which means that she does get her state pension, and she's been as happy as Larry going around on sort of Portsmouth buses already, enjoying her free bus pass. So she's, very relieved to have finally, got that pension that she really deserves, given all of the work that she's contributed in her life. And, this is a hard-working generation of women who've given so much to this country and to Portsmouth locally, and who at the least deserve the pension that they were entitled to. And I know, given what has been said here today about the really shocking statistics about the number of WASP women who have passed away and who are going to pass away before they even access the rights to their pension, there are lots of other WASP women that aren't so lucky, and that is absolutely awful. So I just wanted to place on record my thanks to the WASPy campaign. You have my full support, and thank you for coming here today. And I'm so happy to second this motion, and let's see that we can get justice for WASPy women. Thank you, my Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gerarda. I'm sure the rest of the chamber will join me in wishing your mum a very happy birthday. Councillor Whittington.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Portsmouth City Council calls upon the government to make fair transitional state pension arrangements for all women born on or after the 6th of April 1950 who have unfairly borne the burden of the increase to the state pension age with lack of appropriate notification. Hundreds of thousands of women had significant pension changes imposed on them by the Pension Acts of 1995 and 2011 with little or no personal notification of the changes. Some women had only 2 years' notice of a 6-year increase in their state pension age. Many women born in the 1950s are living in hardship. Retirement plans have been shattered with devastating consequences. Many of these women are already out of the labour market, caring for elderly relatives, providing childcare for grandchildren, or suffer discrimination in the workplace, so struggle to find employment, etc., etc. That was from Full Council, October 2016. 2016, colleagues. And what has the government done? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing about the problems that they had caused. And I say they in the most general terms here because we're talking about the government, capital T, capital G. We're talking about the government from 1995 right through under whatever party or parties it was under right through till now. Because all of them had the opportunity to go and say 1995 for those women who were then going to transition from state pension of having it at 60 to 65, who were born within the 1950 to 1955 time, and then obviously subsequent to 2011 to get that notice as well. But they didn't. They just ignored it. So 1995, the Act was changed. My mum was born in September 1950, and so she was in that first tranche of people who got their state pension a bit later. In her case, it was only 6 months, but she got notification only under a year before her state pension age, and she found out that she wasn't going to get her pension until she was 60 and 6 months. Because they didn't send that. You got your pension forecast. That was the first you knew about it. That was the first that all of those first tranche knew about it, unless you happened to work in the Department for Work and Pensions, which I did at the time. And I remember I relayed this 6 years ago in this very chamber. So we were told, working for the Department of Work and Pensions, we were told about, oh, by the way, just a note for staff in the workplace that you know that next year people are going to start getting their state pension later. They're going to start this transition period. So I didn't say anything to my mum because I thought, oh, she must know about this, because surely the government would have told them. They would have sent them a letter in 1995 saying, you're going to have your state pension later. Surely that would have happened. Or at least, if they didn't do it in 1995, someone would have done it in the subsequent decades and a bit. But they didn't. They waited until the pension forecast came out, which is about a year before your retirement age, or rather, back then your supposed retirement age is when it came out, and therefore you then found out you weren't going to get it for even longer. So what kind of planning could those women do? What could they do? They couldn't plan at all. Because they might have made arrangements, they might have made investments, they might have done other things, bits and pieces. Their partners, their husbands, might have made arrangements that all fitted in with that. But they had no notice. And of course, they couldn't change, a lot of the time, they couldn't change things. So this is where the injustice comes from. Councillor Fielding is absolutely right when he's talking about maladministration. That is what maladministration is. To make a change to someone's entitlement to something and not tell them, why wouldn't you tell people? All it would have taken in 1995 was a notification, a very clear notification to every single person that it would affect. They've got all the records, everyone's on that computer system. Even in 1995, everyone's on there. They would have been able to tell that to everyone. Or they could have put something in place to say maybe 5
6, 7 years before, you would get that kind of notification. But they didn't do it, and people are still suffering the consequences now. As Councillor Gerard said, for some of them, it is they're of that point where they're getting their state pension that bit later, right now, today. So I completely support the motion. I support the amendment as well, because I completely agree with Councillor Pitt. We need to be absolutely clear. Yes, it is the right thing to do, but this is what you've got to actually commit to do it, rather than say, we want to do it, but actually you get to the point of actually the crux of it, if you're going to be in the government, and say, oh, actually it's going to cost too much. Let's make it obvious, let's make it important, and let's show people that you have to give notice for when you're changing their circumstances. You have to let people plan for the future, because it was the WASPy women then, it could be you next, and you wouldn't want that, would you?
Thank you, Councillor Whittington. Next up, I have Councillor Darren Sanders. Councillor Sanders.
Thank you very much, and thank you to Catherine, Barbara and Alderman Burnett for their powerful statements earlier on. As Councillor Whittington has indicated, this has been going around for a very long time in this chamber, and the interesting thing is the consensus amongst political groups in this city to support the WASPy campaign, and the stony silence from our respective national parties. Councillor Whittington mentioned the motion in 2016. He was too kind not to mention it was put forward by Councillor Stagg and himself. That day, before any of the Labour councillors were elected, there was no debate. It wasn't debated here, it wasn't discussed here, it was sent to the Scrutiny Management Panel, excellently chaired by Councillor Simon Beauchamp. No debate, no discussion, it wasn't important enough, so we had the discussion there, I have to say, in a slightly more congenial environment. And then all of us, my Deputy Lord Mayor, agreed that we would actually support this motion. That was proposed by Councillor Beauchamp, seconded by myself. The strong case that Councillor Stagg, Councillor Whittington and our Solent WASPy colleagues put forward that evening made us convinced that this is the right thing to do. Sadly, time has passed. Catherine and Councillor Fielding already outlined the hundreds of thousands of women who've died waiting. The injustice is immense. 1 every 14 minutes, remember, 1 every 14 minutes. That is not acceptable, that is a crime. And it's a crime for 2 reasons. I mean, there have been many blunders of many governments, but this is frankly right down there. It reinforces the sexism of successive Conservative and Labour governments over the pension system, whereby women were denied equal national insurance, equal pensions, because many of them were raised doing the hardest work of all, raising families. That wasn't regarded by the men in charge as a good thing. So they had to rely on their husband's stamps. That was morally wrong. It needs to be rectified. Unthinkable now. And second, as both Councillor Fielding and Catherine, I think earlier on pointed out, it is a point of maladministration. Simple as that. And things need to change quickly. Now, there are 2 reasons why Councillor Pitt and I have put down this motion today, and the first is to provide the one thing that hasn't happened over the decades, and that is certainty. Our Labour colleagues say that we should support the WASPy women's figures, less than the Labour Party offered in 2019, admittedly, but thank you very much for those, but that instead government should provide an immediate compensation package. Note an immediate compensation package, not what the WASPy women are asking for, not what natural justice asks for. This amendment rights that wrong. And secondly, as Councillor Pitt has outlined, I'm going to put this very politely for Conservative colleagues, the minor turbulence that's occurred over the last few months economically has meant that it might not be possible to deliver this straight away. If you crash the economy, that tends to be what happens. So therefore there needs to be certainty, not just from the existing government, but from what is as Councillor Pitt said, the likely next government to actually put this forwards. It is time for all national politicians finally to put up or shut up. Every group in this chamber over the last 6 years has put up in support of the WASPI women. It is now time for our national counterparts to end their silence and do the same. Thank you, my Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sanders. Next to speak, I have Councillor Barrett. Councillor Barrett, please.
Thank you very much, my Deputy Lord Mayor. I wasn't initially going to speak on this, but it's the first time I've said it so far. But I just wanted to take a few minutes to personally thank the Silent WASPI women. I remember sitting up with you up there 6 years ago, supporting you, and the frustration I felt then is still the same now as well. And I just really wanted to thank you as well, because you personally took me under your wing and you taught me what the issues were, and it's just so frustrating that we're still at this point today that you're having to come back to ask us to write again because nothing's come from it. And I think it's really important to say, and it's been mentioned by a couple of people here, this is affecting women and their families, and there's some people who haven't survived this. I know that you guys, you put up on our the support group that Jenny, a really wonderful lady who really suffered over the last few years financially and medically, she passed away recently. Where's her justice at the moment? She's not going to get it. She didn't get to have that retirement time with her husband, who died a few years ago either. So there's no justice there for her. So we all need to just get on with it as nationally and make sure that we make this right, because it is so unjust and it's so not right. So I just want to thank you for continuing to campaign on this really important issue, and I really hope that this gets pushed forward and it gets sorted as soon as possible.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. I've just noticed Councillor Norton arriving. Councillor Norton, do you have any declaration of interest for this meeting?
No, Deputy Lord Mayor, not that I'm aware of. Apologies for my absence, and good to see you.
No worries, we were pre-warned. I have no further requests to speak. So I'll ask Councillor George Fielding to sum up and indicate whether he will be subsuming the amendment.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Clearly this council has been on a journey alongside our WASPI women. From 2016 until now, still no justice. So obviously the debate is quite clear. We are all in support of you. In terms of the amendment, I think we acknowledge that the direction of travel in terms of government is likely to lead to a change of political party leading nationally. So we would subsume the amendment, and we think it's right that we should quantify what that will be in terms of a package, and put that to all leading political parties. So take that further forward. Thank you for the debate, and I look forward to having a unanimous vote on it.
Thank you, Councillor Fielding. As the amendment has been subsumed, we will move to the voting on the substantive motion. All those in favour, please. Any against? And any abstentions? Motion carried. Thank you. That concludes this motion. Moving on to motion D. Is the motion concerning access to Portsmouth Household Waste Recycling Centre proposed by Councillor Atkins and seconded by Councillor Smith? Councillor Atkins.
Yes, as proposed, Deputy Lord Mayor.
Councillor Smith? There you go.
Seconded, thank you. And reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. I now call upon the proposer, Councillor Atkins, to present and speak to his motion. Councillor Atkins.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. This arose really out of questions I have been asked by certain local residents while knocking on the door, and I think a general feeling among some, I'm not saying all, but certainly among some residents within Portsmouth. And I don't intend it to be a particularly political motion. I just think that the time has come to recognise that the situation set up for the household waste recycling centre in Port Solent is possibly more convenient for the council than it is for residents. I think there are certain issues that do arise out of the fact that you have to book a slot in order to attend. That's not the way that most waste recycling centres, household waste recycling centres operate in many areas across the country. I do recognise that is how they operate in other areas in Hampshire, but I think that it presents a significant barrier to access among some people in the city. I think the case that we should consider, first of all, is those people who, they may be kind of household DIYers, or they're having a kind of clean out, and they don't necessarily predict or think, oh, I need to book myself a slot of when I can take the rubbish I produce to the tip, a week in advance, 10 days in advance of when I want to do my clear out, when I want to do my household work. Now, I recognise that also, as the pandemic has ended, the booking system has not, as booked up as it was. Certainly during the pandemic, you could find that you were looking at periods a very long time in ahead, whereby you'd have to book a slot if you wanted to attend. It could be days. Now, I think that is less common, but certainly, busier times, weekends, days of the week when people want to do, work, they're finding that they can't always get a slot to take their waste, certainly not the same day. And I think a lot of people, the way they actually live, the way they actually work, that's the expectation they have. If I generate waste that I can't put in my own waste bin, that is beyond that, I want to go and recycle it, I want to do the responsible thing as a responsible citizen of the city, well, they should be able to take their household waste within working hours to their local waste recycling centre. I think that's particularly true in Portsmouth, where we've had this discussion that we haven't had today around glass, that you can't recycle glass from your door. People have to take that out with them. People can't recycle many types of plastic from their household recycling. So I do think that access to the recycling centre should be something that the council prioritises. I think that there are other particular problems with the booking system, one of which I think is that actually there are people out there, I've certainly heard it anecdotally, who are able to book a number of slots and then don't necessarily use them all, or book a number of slots and cancel them. Certainly that is something I've been told by people that they do. I know that the system is meant to prevent that, but I have my doubts from what I've heard anecdotally that it is functioning effectively on that point, which further reduces the access for people who have a more sudden or urgent need, or at least even just a need that they haven't immediately planned for. If a washing machine breaks down, people want to be able to take that away, or some other appliance breaks down, they want to be able to take that away and get rid of it. I think ultimately one of the issues that we're risking by the system we're operating is fly tipping, and I do think that fly tipping is an ever-present issue for the council, and it's one that I think restricting access to our recycling centre potentially makes worse. So I think there's important reasons why people should be able to access this. I think there is a desire out there to be able to access non-pre-booked slots at the recycling centre among residents, and so it's a concern I think is appropriate to bring before the council. And having said that, I do recognise that there are benefits of the booking system. I'm not saying I think it's a wholly terrible thing. I recognise the organisational benefits to the council and to the staff, and I recognise the potential reduction in traffic, particularly at busy times. And I also recognise it's possible, and I'd be interested to hear this from the Cabinet Member, whether there's a cost implication, whether a saving is produced by the booking system. But I think that there must be some kind of sensible compromise or middle way that could be found here. Does the entirety of the system need to be a slot booking system? Can we have times where people can access the waste recycling centre without a pre-booked slot? Does the system have to be so strict, or at least online in its wording, around having to turn up at the very precise time of your slot, and if you're early you'll be turned away? I think there's a lot of things in the system, in the organisation of the system, that should be looked at and potentially improved. Overall, I think the focus of our household waste recycling system should be what's best for our residents and for the environment, and I don't think it should be based on what is most convenient for the council. And I feel like this booking system prioritises that rather than the best means of resident access. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Atkins. Are there any amendments to this motion? Councillor George Madrick.
Propose an amendment which can be circulated at your request. Yeah.
Would you like me to wait for it to be circulated before it's... Oh yeah, seconder.
I second the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Madrick. Would you like me to wait while it's being circulated? Yeah. Councillor George Madrick, if you'd like to propose the amendment.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Yeah, it's just an amendment really to kind of make it a little bit more nuanced for the time being. As most of you probably know, I actually live on the road that you have to drive through to get to the tip, and it's the only road in and out of the area. Equally, as you know, in our local plan, we were coming up with ideas of how to reroute traffic around the estate of the Titner West project, obviously because of this road being an issue. I'm very on the fence on both sides of this. When I took up my opposition position on the cabinet position that Councillor Fazakerly's got, myself and Councillor John Smith of the Conservative groups turned around and said, "Oh, we want this reopened immediately." So in essence, I completely agree with Councillor Atkins' motion, and I'll be supporting it regardless of whether he subsumes my amendment or not. But I would like him to subsume my amendment because I think there's one fundamental issue here that's been overlooked, and that's how it affects the 800 plus residents of Port Solent and the businesses in the area. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar, as I say, you've got the Portway. Now, unfortunately, because of where the tip is situated, you have to drive down the entirety of Portway to get to the tip. Before you get to that section, there is 4 roads which leads to the entire residential side of Port Solent, which you have to pass, and also it's by the access where the businesses are. Now, Monday to Friday, and this is one of the things I think, Councillor Atkins, that we could look into, is on a negotiation of when we could have it open completely freely, because I think, for example, on weekdays, it wouldn't necessarily be a problem, but I'm sure Councillor Fazakerly will bring up when he speaks, no doubt, that there's a massive traffic and congestion issue around Portway in relation to the tip at weekends and peak season. So if on a Saturday or Sunday they've got the Mustang car meet in Port Solent, to give you an example, you have usually 150, 200 sports cars turn up along with the tip, along with the residents, along with all the local businesses, and I'm sure a lot of councillors in here will be aware of the carnage and backlog, even to the fact that I believe during the COVID pandemic, there was actually our own council offices were trying to usher traffic through for a good couple of weeks because the traffic was that substantially bad. So, yeah, in essence, I agree with Councillor Atkins' motion. I would like to see the household recycling reopened without many restrictions or the need for booking, but I think we've got to have a discussion with that, and I would like to consult the residents of Port Solent, because fundamentally they're the ones that are going to literally be affected on the ground, because I'm telling you now from someone that lives in Port Solent, it can be an absolute nightmare. I'm very lucky that I live on the first house in Port Solent, so I haven't actually got to go through the traffic jam of Portway, but the other 800 people do. So hopefully you can accept my amendment. We can get the administration to do a survey of Port Solent, and we can bring it back in March and make some positive changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Madrick. The matter is now before the Council to debate. First up, I have Councillor Lynn Stagg. Councillor Stagg.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I've visited the household waste tip many times in the 40-odd years I've lived in Portsmouth, and every time I went there, without exception, I had to queue. Massive amounts of emissions from the cars in front. There were frequently times I had to queue right the way down past the roundabout before you even got up there, before you went over the first speed hump. So it was a long time. It would take about 3/4 of an hour to actually get in there and do the work. Then, during the pandemic, there were officials there, and they were brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Not once did I have to queue, even when it was in the pandemic. There were officials guiding you. It was straight through every time. I have been there at least a dozen times since the pandemic, and not once have I had to queue. Absolutely brilliant. Go straight up, maybe queue for about 2 or 3 minutes while some cars cleared, but that would have been about it. So if I was living in Paulsgrove or Port Solent, I would welcome the booking, because I would not suffer from the air pollution that the waiting cars were making all the time. And can I just say, I have booked on a few occasions, 3 I think, on the day that I wanted to take some, just on spec, I thought, I wonder, is there a slot? Yes, there was a slot, so on the same day. So no waiting, no planning weeks ahead, because it was possible to do it straight away. So I totally disagree with this motion. I think it's the best thing that's happened to that area. Better than sliced bread. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stagg. Councillor Fazakerley, did you have a point of order you wanted to raise there?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It was actually a point of information, but I haven't got my standing orders with me, so I couldn't remember what it was, so I didn't want to be embarrassed by saying what it was. Anyway, I'll use this little slot to say, just in relation to what Councillor Magic was saying, Councillor Magic, it's not actually me to respond on this, since this is no longer part of the public safety portfolio. It's Councillor Barrett, so just to clarify that. That was it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fazakerley. Next up, I've got Councillor Kimberly Barrett. Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, my Deputy Lord Mayor. Thank you very much for bringing this motion to Council today, because I think it's a good opportunity to talk through it all. I just want to say that in regards to the decision, it was made at Cabinet, pre me being Cabinet member for this area now, but it was agreed at Cabinet between all of us. But I think it's very important as well, as you've mentioned, that this is not just something that we've made the decision on in Portsmouth. It's a Hampshire decision that's been made across Hampshire County Council as well as West Sussex Council as well. But we've all had a look at this, and we've done consultation before, and the approval ratings, so to speak, for the booking system have been through the roof. They're actually much higher than I ever thought they would be. So, for example, Hampshire County Council, they on their survey, they had an 89.9% satisfaction rate with that, and 78%, just over 78% supported the continuing of the booking system. And the cabinet member, the cabinet member there, they've put in the report and agreed to have this system indefinitely now across Hampshire County Council. The same with my counterpart in West Sussex as well. They've also had, I've got the figures here, they had a huge, I think it was between 68 and 77% satisfaction rate as well. They've seen a decrease in traffic, a decrease in air quality, an increase in air quality, and they've also, as you mentioned about costing as well, they've actually managed to save money because they don't any longer need the additional traffic marshals or the security on site now as well. So it has led to that. I do think it's important to mention as well, and I've done it every day since I saw this was on the books for today. I've been on every day throughout the day, sort of maybe up to an hour and a half before the tip, not the tip, HWRC, I'll get told off for that. And I would have been able to book an appointment right up sort of half an hour's time every single day this week. I checked today and it was still, you'd still be able to go on. So it's brilliant, you know. So I think it does work very well. I think it's very important to mention as well because, you know, we know not everyone's tech savvy and aren't able to get online to do the booking system. So we actually have a telephone appointment system so you can call up and book in for a slot as well. Because we do realise that, you know, not everyone can get online to book and sometimes it is easier just to speak to a person to get in. So I just wanted to say that, you know, it has been really popular. My counterparts across Hampshire have supported this and made it permanent like we have here as well. In regards to fly tipping as well, I know my Oppo counterparts, so Charlotte and Russell and Rob, they every month they get sort of the tonnages that come through as well. In regards to fly tipping, I am pleased to say, and people don't tend to believe me, but we've got the facts and figures and I'm always more than happy to share them with anybody who wants to see them. But when you look at this time, so December 2019, the tonnage rates for fly tipping, they were around 19.5 tonnes. As of, so last month you were looking at an average throughout the year of 12.5. So we are dropping, apart from the odd occasion, you know, where it's just been after Christmas, you might see something, or sometimes when the students are leaving, you do tend to see a slight increase. But, you know, at the moment we are doing really well. So I don't think that's necessarily a concern for Portsmouth. I know Southampton are very concerned, and they have a trial, or they had a trial to take it away, the booking system, for 3 months. I spoke to my colleagues at Project Integra to try and find out what was going on in regards to that, because I haven't seen a report back so far. But I have spoken to them, so I'm waiting to hear about that. But it's also very important to know that I have spoken to council officers and other members from across Hampshire County Council just to see what their opinion was, and they're all in agreement that it seems to be working very well for them. So I'm sorry, but I can't support the motion today because it's working very well, and my mantra has always been, if it's not fixed, don't break it. If it's not broken, don't fix it. That's better. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. Next up to speak, I have Councillor Graham Heaney. Councillor Heaney.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. When I saw this motion, I obviously thought that I've heard similar comments from residents who say they wish it was reopened and available, but I also see the advantages of the current system of appointments. I mean, I can remember queuing in the road to get into the household waste recycling centre at weekends, particularly when it's busy. And when I was working full time, that was obviously an issue because you couldn't get in very well. But I think Councillor Atkins' motion is not intended to be provocative or partisan. I think really what we want is a proper assessment of how this has worked. And in many ways, the motion and to an extent the amendment is a means of actually demonstrating what the impact of this particular proposal has been, because clearly we want to encourage as much recycling as possible. We also want to make it as convenient as possible, but we also want to ensure that there isn't huge inconvenience to residents in the area. And it's very interesting that Councillor Barrett said they've got all this information and how it works, but the trouble is it hasn't been shared with the rest of us as members. We're all incredibly busy. We all have a lot of things to keep track of. I mean, I was at one stage shadowing 2 portfolios, thankfully not that anymore. And looking after, traffic as I do as the Labour Group spokesman, is demanding enough. And it would be, I don't think the administration take enough opportunities to share information about what's going on to all members, which doesn't necessarily have to go to a cabinet meeting, but could be shared directly. I mean, I'm not trying to create a lot of, I don't think we're trying to create a lot of extra work for people, but it would be useful, I think, if there was some proper evaluation of what has gone on in the household waste recycling centre and the system, and that it was in the public domain, because it will also help the public's understanding of what's going on. Because again, as Councillor Atkins said, I have people saying, well, why don't they reopen it? Or why don't we just go up when we want to? If it was in the public domain, it would be much easier to explain. I mean, I know what the advantages are, but it would help people to understand what's going on. I mean, I understand Councillor Madrick's amendment, and I had a brief discussion with my colleague, Councillor Girardi's deputy, about whether that was, I would be happy to see it go forward, the motion and the amendment, with a view to the administration bringing back some proper evaluation of what it is at a cabinet meeting, or maybe even sharing it with members.
Thank you, Councillor Heaney. Next to speak, I have Councillor John Smith. Councillor Smith, please.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I agree, certainly, from when we spoke about it at our group meeting, that there's a lot of favour for booking the system online. If you use it, you really like it. And indeed, as Councillor George Mayor already said, we spoke about it at the end of COVID and that at the safety meeting about reopening it without a booking system, and we heard from the administration that it works really, really well. So I certainly get that and loud and clear. However, I do worry about the fact that we might miss a swathe of the community who don't want to or can't book online for whatever reason, and that worries me as has already been stated by Councillor Atkins, that fly tipping could be a concern there. And indeed, we've heard that some companies might be closing their recycling sites in the city. So the opportunity, I think there's a compromise should be made, and the opportunity to have both systems where you can book online for those that really, really like it, but there should be a time of day or a time when people can just turn up and drop their stuff off on the same day when they're clearing out or doing whatever they're doing. And I'd certainly support Councillor Madgwick's motion there with regards to the people around the area to have a say on that as well. So that's my view on it. I think a compromise needs to be sought.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Gerald Vernon Jackson, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just to pick up some of the comments that colleagues have made, if this had been a neutral motion that said, can the council examine this, then I think I'd have a different view. But this motion is not a neutral motion. It has a conclusion that it wants the booking system to go. And all it is asking for the cabinet to do is to bring that in. Now, if this had been something saying, let's look at this, that's fine, and I think we could have had a look at that. There does seem to be an issue. Councillor Heaney is not seeing stuff given to opposition spokespeople, and that information is not being shared within his group. That's a worry. And I think what we'll need to do probably is to see if we can get the information that is given to opposition spokespeople put on MIS so that everybody can see it automatically without the need for that to go round. But I think we need to be clear that if this goes through, the presumption is that the rest of Hampshire will keep a booking system and we won't. We can't do, some people have said let's do booking system at the weekends when it was busy and not, that doesn't work. You either have one system or another, and you can't do mix and match. Otherwise people have no idea what to do. The council operates an online system, but it also, as Councillor Smith, has a telephone system. So anybody in the city who possesses a telephone is able to book. And that system has worked well. I think my worry is, having sat in the queues, is the amount of air pollution that is created with those long queues in Port Solent, chucking out fumes, and we know that the prevailing wind is a westerly wind, so it takes it all the way from Port Solent across the city, which is disappointing. And finally, Councillor Smith, the figures say that with this system, fly tipping is down. So if you don't want fly tipping, the logic is you need to keep the booking system. If you want fly tipping to increase and go back to how it was, you need to go back to a non-booking system. So it depends on your view, through your Deputy Lord Mayor, whether you like fly tipping or not. So my Lord Mayor, I think if you're not in favour of fly tipping, you won't support this. If you're not in favour of air pollution, you wouldn't support this. And if you're interested in having a system that works well, you wouldn't be supporting this. So my Lord Mayor, I think it's a very simple thing.
Thank you, Councillor Vernon Jackson. I believe Councillor Heaney has a point of order, but before that I'd just like to remind everyone of Standing Order 37A. It must be the Chair that's addressed in all meetings, so if you could pass all comments through me, please.
Yes, on 39B, and point of explanation that something may be misunderstood or misinterpreted. First of all, I said that the council has a responsibility to give information, and that is a responsibility it has to all members. It is not the responsibility of opposition spokespersons to be the filter for information. The council has a responsibility to inform all members about activities that it is engaged in, and members have a right to that information. So therefore, sharing it is a good idea and shouldn't be relied on through opposition spokespersons, because I know from my own experience that even opposition spokespersons don't get always the information that they are necessarily entitled to. With regard to Councillor Vernon Jackson's attempt to portray me as someone who's in favour of fly tipping, I mean, it's a load of nonsense, an utter load of nonsense. And what he should, because the motion actually says, the motion then says, Private asks the Cabinet to consider implementing this change. It is a Cabinet decision, not a Council decision. So why don't you just have a bit of grace and accept that we're asking for some information and asking for a review, and come back and do it properly.
Thank you, Councillor Heaney. Councillor Vernon.
Councillor Heaney, my apology. I'm sorry, I am told I have got this wrong. that it's not just given to your opposition spokesperson, but it is published in the public
Councillor
reports
Jackson.
that are available to all members. But I'm asking it to be on MIS as well, so that members who don't read those reports
Councillor Vernon-Jackson, as I pointed out, everything should be addressed through the chair in a meeting. Thank you. Councillor Terry Norton.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I'll keep this very, very brief, but we're going backwards, aren't we? This seems a ridiculous debate, really. Look, the Liberals always blame everything on pollution, but what about those that drove up to the tips with cars full of rubbish, only to be told that the empty tip wouldn't accept their rubbish and then turned round and came back? I mean, that seems like a double journey wasted, probably 4 journeys rather than the one, for a system that no one really communicated. For years, people have always had the right to go up to the tip. If they queue, but fundamentally they went up there and used the service, and now we've completely overcomplicated it to where they're empty. If the leader wanted to do, through you, Lord Mayor, Deputy Lord Mayor, to change this, then why don't you put an amendment in saying, yeah, do you know what, we'll run a priority service for those who book or what have you, but instead we've had all manner of nonsense blamed on and fear-mongering about what might happen if we take away this ridiculous booking system. Look, it wasn't broke, so why did we fix it? That's simply where I'm coming from, and surely we should just put our hands up and say, do you know what, we got it wrong, let's move on from it. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Norton. And next to speak, I have Councillor Steve Pear. Councillor Pear.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I'm a bit confused because when something is taken to a portfolio meeting as a report, it is reported through MIS, and every member in this chamber has the opportunity to go and look up that information should they make themselves interested in it. I don't know what we're expected to do. Should we write it on parchment and send a town cry around to individual members' houses saying, oh yay, just to make sure that people do bother to do that job for which they have been elected, which is to avail themselves of information in the public domain about the business of this council and ensure that they are familiar with its activities. There was a decision meeting held on the 9th of March, I've just looked it up, and that was when Councillor Dave Ashmore was the portfolio holder, where a full report about how the Waste Recovery Centre was actually being used was published with data and information in there. Councillor Heaney, for you or any other member of this council to look at. Accusing this administration of not circulating information that it has circulated is frankly nonsensical, as most of the remarks that were made, unfortunately, just now by the councillor who's also the Deputy Police and Crime Commissioner, and as usual, none of us can figure out what on earth he's talking about. But Deputy Lord Mayor, it's perfectly acceptable to hold this administration to account when it has not done something that it should have done. But what it did do is hold a portfolio decision meeting where the appropriate report was brought, and all the information that Councillor Barrett has updated you on is just the most up-to-date information which she has brought voluntarily to this chamber under no pressure from anybody. An update to a meeting that was held in March of this year when, as I recall, Councillor Graham Heaney was an elected member of this council.
Thank you, Councillor Pitt. Next to speak, I've got Councillor Lee Mason. Lee Mason, please.
Thank you very much, Deputy Lord Mayor. This is negating the fact we're trying to dodge around and avoid answering a question. It does have a huge effect on certain people. I know from clearing out my own mum's house, Devon, very fortunately, are a lot more enlightened, and they do have the tips open that you can visit without booking. You can call in. If you suddenly have something from the garden you need to get rid of, if you have unexpected need to move stuff, you can. Now, I have stuff at home that I now need to book to take to the tip. I could just throw it in the waste and have it go off to the burner and destroyed, or I can try and take up the time, find a point where I can book in, work out when and how long the meeting is going to last, and head up there once I've got a booking. It is discouraging people, and I've heard from a lot of my residents who are very close, being in Cosham, that they can just drive across, but the booking, it's far easier to just throw it in the waste, and there we have a lot of things going to be burnt which could have been recycled. This is not helping the environment, this is not helping people's lives in the city. And I think we just need to look at trying to make it an easier option for people and help them actually recycle and take stuff to waste tip when they need to. Thank you, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor.
Not quite yet. Thank you, Councillor Mason. Next to speak, I've got Councillor Peter Harris. Councillor Peter.
No, I'll just keep it brief, Lord Mayor. I think there's been a lot of idle chatter about things that aren't really relevant to the motion, and I think the sensible thing this motion is asking for us to look at a potential to do something slightly different than what we're doing at the moment. And I think we have to be conscious about how people are living their lives at the moment. I think obviously some people haven't got a lot of money in their pockets. They're going through their houses. They're doing slight upgrades, slight different things that they are. They're not going on holiday, so they're spending more money on their homes. So they are gutting their houses. And a lot of people do that on the whim, and to book sometimes is not really feasible for those to do so. I mean, I can give you an example. I've moved house. I haven't got an opportunity to book something because I have a young child. So if I'm going to gut something, I get a spare 3 or 4 hours to do it. I don't have time to sit there and do a booking slot, So, and a lot of people are in those situations. So a lot of people are in those situations. So I think if there was a way to have some flexibility within the system, Deputy Lord Mayor, I think that would be welcomed, but also at the same time I think it's an open and quite a good discussion to have, because there are some merits to the appointment system. I think that has been apparent, but there also are some merits where people can just be able to turn up. And I think the amendment is also quite conscious to the residents that live in Port Solent and to the traffic that comes through there. So I'm quite happy with that as well. But I just think we should be really focusing on the motion and not some of the discussions that we're having about Councillor Heaney potentially being a fly tipper, which I think is completely ridiculous. And I would quite happily stand up in a court and say he's not a fly tipper. But, I just think we should be looking at what the motion's asking. I think the motion's asking something that's quite sensible, and I think members should vote for it.
Thank you, Councillor Peter Harris. I've got one more speaker. That's Councillor Robert New, please.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. What a peculiar turn this debate has taken. I thought that this was fairly uncontroversial and that, it's been presented, been supported by Councillor Madrick. I know Councillor New has had similar concerns, etc., on behalf of local residents and whatnot. So I recall, through my own private briefings I had from when I was the portfolio member, and, I do like to keep my hand in sometimes with some of these things because you build good relationships with officers, that they said that they couldn't actually attribute why there was a rise in fly tipping and then why there's been a decrease. That's what's been said to me by our officers, and I take them on face value. So, I suppose the point I'm making is, it's easy for us to sit here and spin, etc. But the reality is there's a request here. As I understood at the time, it was only a temporary decision at the time to try and solve the problems with the tip, because people were doing lots of gardening, etc. in the pandemic. And it was just a way to try and manage the in and out and the demand really for that service. Now that things are returned to normal, I don't think it's beyond a reasonable ask to look to change it back to what it was, least of all on behalf of the people of Port Solent. I think that we just need to kind of have a bit of a rationale debate. We are now going into a really hard winter. Things are hard for people. The cost of living crisis has been mentioned many times. While we're here, I'm literally working on the new food pantry offers that are coming online to help people. That's the serious stuff that we should be getting on with. These things seem very bizarre. If you want to have a political punch-up about this, do it elsewhere. This is literally wasting our time, officers' time, God knows how much time. It's ridiculous. I think we should just get through this motion, but we should keep facts to what they are. The officers say they didn't actually know whether this is responsible or not for a decrease in fly tipping, and I would take their word over any politicians.
Thank you, Councillor New. I have no further speakers indicated, so if I could ask the proposer, Councillor Atkins, to sum up and indicate whether he will be subsuming the amendments.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Yes, I'm quite happy to subsume the amendment. I do recognise the impact that there could be on the local residents in the Port Solent area, and so surveying them and consulting local residents, I think, is always an important part of any decision and shouldn't be ignored. I think perhaps one of the things that's come out during this debate, and I apologise if the leader feels that I phrased it in too controversial a manner. It's probably my sort of grammar school debating background that I like to propose something and like to debate it. But I think from the debate, I think what's come through is the need that this is a subject which should be reviewed and which information should be clear and publicly available, because it was a decision taken temporarily for the pandemic, which now appears to have become permanent, and I think that should require a substantial review and public comment and public release of information. It is a decision where I continue to think that we should have the opportunity for people to be able to attend without an appointment, so I continue to believe in the principle of the motion. I can't believe that it's beyond the ken of man to have a mixed system, even if the waste recycling centre itself booked out some of its slots for a drop-in session. I don't see how that wouldn't work. Why would it be impossible to have a mixed system where some of the slots were set aside for drop-in? I simply cannot fathom why that would be impossible. I also don't think that the council should just assume this is the correct decision based on the decisions of surrounding councils. I think it would be very interesting to see the results of the Southampton trial as they attempt a reopening of their household waste recycling centre for drop-in visits. So I think, ultimately, if the Cabinet takes this amended motion as an instruction to review this properly, to consider it and to attempt to find a way for those residents, and perhaps to some degree I am representing those less well-organised residents. I suspect that to some degree the high approval rates we're seeing are people who are asked at the end of the booking system whether or not they like the booking system, which I think unsurprisingly they probably do. It's the people who don't use the booking system who, like me, have a toaster that broke during the pandemic sitting on the shelf for 2 years because I could either put that in the bin or I could take it to the waste recycling centre but have to book a slot and make a special visit. I just think there's a danger that some people, and particularly the residents that so many of us, and I think there was a recognition across the council that we are hearing from residents that there are people who don't like the booking system. There's a danger of those people putting it in their bins. There is a danger of them turning to perhaps waste recycling individuals who may fly tip, and we could see fly tipping. Now, I think it's fantastic news that the fly tipping rates have gone down. Every councillor hates fly tipping, but I agree with colleagues that exactly why that has happened is not something we can easily understand or predict, and I think it's difficult to see a direct link with how a booking system makes it less likely, but if it's there, fantastic. But I don't think there's a direct link that I can think of in logic, so I think it's something we need to be very, very careful about. I also think we need to be careful about people making longer trips outside the area to dump their waste elsewhere if our waste recycling centre is not properly accessible. I think we've heard from various people who might have the types of issues we're talking about, people who don't want to engage with booking systems either online or on the phone. I think some people, whether it's fully capability or whether it's slightly refusenic attitude, won't want to engage with those kind of systems. I think we've heard about people with young families who do things last minute. I think we have a dispute in this group, and if I'm wrong, but please do check about whether or not you are able to book slots on the day, because we've just tried and we're not able to. There we go. End of the afternoon is about when I would generally finish DIY. Anyway, I shall round this off by saying I still support the thrust of this motion. I think that this needs looking at, and I think that there should be the opportunity for those who don't want to have to book a slot in advance, subject to the needs of the residents of Paulsgrove, but for the wider residents of the city and their desire to use the waste recycling centre, I do think that there is a need for open unbooked slots, and that is something that Cabinet should review and consider seriously and should examine the evidence on in detail, and please report back to Council on that, or at least to opposition spokespeople, regardless of the result of this vote. So thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I still move the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Atkins. We'll now move to the vote on the substantive motion subsuming the amendment. All those in favour, please. The motion is carried. Thank you. That concludes that motion. I had intended, as Deputy Lord Mayor, to take a break after a couple of hours, but we've got one more motion, then questions, so I suggest we push through. Let's do it. And then we can... It's in my gift. It's in my gift. That concludes that motion. Moving on to motion E is the motion concerning celebrating local sportswomen, proposed by Councillor Brent.
Proposed, Lord Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Symes. So go. Right, I now call upon the proposer, Councillor Brent, to present and speak to his motion. Councillor Brent.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I think this is a motion where what's written is more of the substance than any speech would be able to say. I think I can add a bit of context as to why I've put this notice of motion forward. I think that this has been a great year for sports in general, and as highlighted in the first paragraph, and hopefully it will become an even better year in sports, shall we say. And who knows, we might win the World Cup, we'll see. But so the reason that I'm the person proposing this motion so Vicky Cornborough, who's mentioned in the second paragraph, was someone I went to college with. So I sat next to her in maths class, and she was sort of exceptionally driven with her sport. She'd come to college, she'd be tired, she'd have training, and so forth. And I've got a few friends who sort of do different sports at an elite level, and I think it's something that we should recognise. It's so difficult with such a commitment to get to that level, and really, in a nutshell, that's why I've put it on there. The aptness of this is that Vicky retires this year at 31, and I think that it's just right that it's on the order paper so that the council can recognise the achievements that she's brought forward as a Portsmouth resident her whole life on a national level of sport. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brent. Do I have any amendments to this motion? I do have an amendment to this motion. And is that proposed by Councillor Simpson?
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I'd like to propose an amendment.
And is that seconded by Councillor Madrick?
Seconded.
Can we circulate that, please? Would you like me to wait till it's circulated before you speak? Councillor Simpson, if I can call on you to formally propose the amendment.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd first like to thank Councillor for bringing this motion forward. The amendments I propose are off the back of a question I asked in the last full council, which is very similar, and highlight the sporting talent in the city. My amendment is to just add more flesh to the bones of the motion, so identify how younger generations can be inspired by sport role models within our local community, a plan on how to support and sustain up-and-coming local sporting people in areas of sports, reach out to local sports people and schools to set up a method where local sports can talk and inspire the youth within the school setting, and work proactively in assigning an amount of finance within the 23-24 council budget that is ring-fenced and supporting emerging talent. I feel this is important as a council that we support our heroes, like has been mentioned, as well as Ebony Jones, as well as Maddie Madison, that's also been achieving excellent things in sports in Portsmouth. I feel that if we can add this, please, it will really help us taking action more effectively. Thank you, Lord Mayor, Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Simpson. The matter is now before the council to debate. I've got Councillor Linda Symes indicated. Councillor George Madrick.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Yeah, just fantastic motion put forward by Councillor Brent, and obviously, needless to say, I'm supporting the amendment by Councillor Simpson. I just wanted to highlight one of our own Paulsgrove young talents. We've got a girl called Maddie Martin. I know that my father, Councillor Brian Madrick, has been working with supporting her. At just the age of 13, she was ring-fenced to be one of the basketball Paralympians in 2024, and it looks like that she might take part in that in 2 years' time. And I'd also like to thank Councillor Pitt, because I believe that he has been involved and helped supply a little bit of funding for Maddie as well on her journey to the Paralympics. So I think the administration is already doing stuff to support our local sporting talent, but I think this motion just kind of puts forward a commitment of additional support. It's not just in that. We've got, I know we always bang on about boxing in our group, but it's something we really enjoy. We've got Joel McIntyre, who was on Channel 5 just last week. We've had McKinson, who was fighting in Texas to 60,000 people. We've got some really, really good talent in Portsmouth. It's about time we promote it. Even 2 decades ago, we had Katie Sexton, if everybody remembers, from Baffins, who won medals in swimming. So we've got some really, really good talent in the city, and I think this motion is fantastic, and I think any way that we can continue supporting that talent would be great, and some form of plan moving forward to kind of do that is a positive thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Madrick. Next to speak, I have Councillor Steve Pitt.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. In the interest of not going through the exercise that we went through a few moments ago on the last notice of motion, I'm very happy with everything that's on the table here, mainly because we are doing it. This council is very active around these areas. I do understand that there is an argument to be made for more information being in front of councillors about what that work is, and in fact about 6 weeks ago I gave an instruction for our facilities manager to work directly with BH Live, who deliver a lot of this sports achievement and support work on behalf of the council as our leisure operator, to bring a full report on all of their activities to Cabinet, because it's not just about stuff that they're doing with young people, it's not just about stuff they're doing with young women in particular, but it is about the stuff that they're doing across the whole of the community to support a whole raft of different people, and it's quite exceptional work and incredibly impressive, and it needs to have a light shone on it. No doubt the report will go out on MIS, which for members benefit who don't understand that is the Members Information Service, which is where you can find out about things that are discussed in a public meeting. So we'll make sure that that actually happens. We do have, through the Sports Council, a small amount of grant money to issue each year. There have been issues in getting the Sports Council to regularly reconvene post-COVID. People who've been in roles for a very long period of time have stepped down. We're going to do another recruitment process to try and bring some new blood into that, and I've actively been going out in the community to different sports organisations. One notable one that stands out is the amazing work that Portsmouth North End are doing in cycling up at Mount Batten, and I spent the evening with them back in the summer. Very impressive to see. Through that work it enables us to support outstanding individuals, and particularly youngsters and sports clubs. And as Councillor George Madjovic referred to, Maddie made through her dad made an application through that process, and she was given financial support on that basis. So there is money in the budget. That's number D. Item D on the amendment. For C, reaching out to local sports people and schools, that's what we've been doing. There is also a schools forum through which use of council leisure facilities can be facilitated to enable athletes to have that support. BH Live actually run an elite athletes programme, which is specifically dedicated to sporting excellence across a whole range of different sports, not least swimming, as referred to through the historical Katie Sexton, of course, and that kind of support is still deemed very important to this day for that reason. So all of this stuff is extremely important to me. We've been doing lots of work on it, going around the city, meeting with different groups. In fact, the first time I ever met Councillor Kadir was when he invited me along to the badminton night that he was running at the time at Wimbledon Park Sports Centre, and an excellent evening that was, and there's some really outstanding young individuals within that community as well who deserve support. So it is there, it does exist, we're very keen and passionate about it, very supportive of the motion brought forward by Councillor Brent. Never a bad thing to shine a light on great things that happen in this city and some of our outstanding residents. Councillors may recall that a few years ago we actually did a series of posters that went up on bus stops and around the city. I think it was under the previous Lib Dem administration, and they were circulated, and they featured people who had secured success in the various different fields, not least sport, because I remember having to email Roger Black's manager and asking him for a publicity photo to use for exact that purpose, and Susie went to school with it. So I think that's a piece of work we could revive again. So great motion. Let's have an outbreaking of agreement on this one and try and conclude the debate swiftly. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Pitts. Next up, I have Councillor Brian Madrick, please. Brian Madrick.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I've seen this afternoon where
people are having the pop at each other, different parties, etc., etc. Well, I want to put it on record that I thank Steve Pitt immensely. I took on Maddie 6 months ago, Rob, her dad. I've had meetings with Rob and I've had meetings with Maddie, but when I asked Steve about it, he was straight in. They did donate money, he did donate money, and I thank him very much for that. But also he gave advice on other areas to get money, etc. for Maddie. She's a wonderful young lady, she's happy all the time, she's in a wheelchair, obviously, her life is a wheelchair, but she's going for targets, she's a skinny little girl, so young, but she's actually represented Britain in World Championships, she's going to the Olympics for him. It's a lot of money, it costs $15,000 a year expenses, and her dad has to support it, but we're getting money from here, there and everywhere, other charities, etc. And I just want to thank Steve personally. He did a wonderful job. He helped us in all sorts of ways. So forget the politics. We can all work together on helping our youngsters in Portsmouth. And I thank you very much. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Madrick. Councillor Symes, you're still indicating to speak. Did you wish to?
Say really that this was to offer recognition for someone who's retired. So if we could have some kind of an award for people in this city who have done well, and it would act as I'm sure it would encourage other people to try and do well. All these other people are just wonderful, but this was just a sort of someone who'd played for their country, were retiring at 31, and how were we going to recognise that? So that's all.
Thank you, Councillor Symes. Next to speak, I have Councillor Jason Fazakerley. Councillor Fazakerley.
Thank you very much, Deputy Lord Mayor. I think I wanted to build on Councillor Madgwick's conciliatory approach about not having a pop at anybody. And I wanted to thank my Conservative colleagues for bringing this notice of motion today. And I shall fully support it and I shall fully vote for it. But the reason I stand up to you is to speak is in order to give my personal thanks to the Right Honourable Member for Portsmouth North, current Leader of the House of Commons, who to commend her stance in highlighting highboard diving some years ago. Okay? I would have submitted an amendment to that effect, but for some reason I don't think I'll get any supporters amongst the Lib Dems to support it. But I thought it only proper in like this notice of motion to re-watch some of those programmes, to Splash I believe it was called, purely of course to make sure I was okay for the notice of motions, that I hadn't missed anything. Sadly I think it was on the 6th viewing, or maybe that was the 7th, my DVD melted. But if anybody on the Conservative benches happens to have a spare copy, I'd be willing to give good money for it, or any photos or anything of that nature. But thank you, but I support the motion, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fazakerley. I'm sure the footage is available on YouTube to stream if you need it. Councillor Robert New.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Well, I wasn't going to speak, but it's just to follow on that surely Councillor Fazakerley is highlighting such an important issue, such as the Right Honourable Member of Portsmouth North taking part in the show Splash, was that she used that fee to help the Hillsey Lido, and together through other people, the administration, the previous administration, Penny has actually helped to bring a huge amount of money down from government, which that you could argue was the catalyst. And while some people may take the mickey, actually I think we can all be very proud of that. Portsmouth Pompey has a brilliant sporting ethos. The Pompey spirit is always there. We saw it with the World Cup even this week, and I actually think some of the things that have been raised today about some of the sporting stars of the future and the past should be absolutely commended. We should celebrate those and we should be very proud, but we should also rightly recognise all of those people that are doing good by the city to help all of those people to thrive.
Thank you, Councillor New. I have no further speakers indicated, so I will call upon the proposer, Councillor Brent, to sum up and indicate whether he will be subsuming the amendment. Councillor Brent.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I'm happy to subsume the amendment into the original motion. It's nice to have a debate where there's more comedy necessary than political fighting. There's nothing really more I can add apart from I think it's just important to look at all stages of sports people's careers and recognising the end of a career and also encouraging younger generations to start that career. There's nothing more I can add apart from I hope everyone can support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Brent. We will move to the vote. All those in favour, please. That's a substantive with a subsumed. Yeah. Are there any to the contrary? No. No. That motion is carried. That brings us to the end of notices of motion at 4:15. Councillor Venn.
Shall I say that Deputy Lord Mayor very efficient at chairing, of course.
Thank you. I just like to get things done. We're on to questions. Order. Questions under members. Questions from members under Standing Order 17. Members, there are 11 questions under Standing Order 17 that have previously been circulated to you. As you know, there's a total of 45 minutes allocated within Standing Orders to deal with these questions. Can I remind everyone that the member asking the original question may ask up to 2 supplementary questions that must arise directly out of the original question. Any other member is limited to 1 supplementary question that must arise directly out of the original question or the replies. Question 1, Councillor Fielding, to be answered by Councillor Pitt. Councillor Fielding.
Question. My name, Deputy Lord Mayor.
Councillor Pitt.
Thank you very much, Deputy Lord Mayor. The Bransbury Park project continues to be actively developed and at present is progressing towards the start of REBA Stage 3, which will end with a planning application in the first half of next year. REBA Stage 3 develops the design to a point where the building is spatially coordinated in terms of architectural and engineering information. In other words, the building layout is finalised, its external architectural appearance has been developed to a point sufficient for planning to be considered, and the site layout is known. We're currently at REBA Stage 2, which develops the concept design and project brief. This has taken longer than planned, as we must ensure we have a deliverable project that fits the planned cost envelope. Various factors impact on that, not least the increase in borrowing costs since the catastrophic mini-budget of Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng, also the worldwide impact of post-COVID, post-Brexit, war in Ukraine, supply chain issues, driving up raw material costs and inflationary pressures in the wider economy. We are, however, confident that we will have a deliverable scheme capable of attracting Sport England funding as planned. Sport England continue to be supportive. They are undergoing major strategic change in their management structure, overall strategy and the investment vehicles. The Strategic Facilities Fund will be replaced in April 23 with a new place-based investment fund. This means that we will not know the level of funding available till then, but I do have a further meeting with Sport England before Christmas. During this period, we have also been exploring alternative building options. Swim England, the national governing body, recommended that we investigate a tension membrane design for constructing the building, as they had seen this approach used successfully for leisure facilities in North America. That has particularly high environmental credentials, which is why we were keen to look at it. Officers did investigate the very few structures of this kind in the UK, albeit on a smaller scale, and commissioned an options appraisal, as suggested by Swim England, by 2 separate contractors. Regrettably, for the range of accommodation this facility requires, there is no significant cost or programme benefit from the tension membrane design. There were insurance risks too, this mainly due to the fact that this is not seen as a conventional design as yet in this country, although it is commonplace elsewhere. So the work's now concluded and a tension membrane design will not be used at Branbury Park, but it will be a conventional build and still be aiming to achieve high environmental standards. Value engineering at this stage is concerned with the inclusion or not of large accommodation elements. Through consultation, it is very clear that the core elements that must be included are a swimming pool, a learner pool, a gym, a sports hall and a cafe with ancillary elements like reception, office, WCs. This means that focus must fall on non-core elements. We concluded that there must be a change to the proposal for like re-provision of the community centre within the facility. This would mean a model where there is much more sharing of spaces between the community association and the leisure operator has had originally been envisaged. or the retention of some or all of the existing community centre buildings. Officers have been in dialogue very recently with Eastney Area Community Association. An agreement has just last week been reached over this. The association is definitive in its view that remaining within their existing buildings is their preferred option. Retaining the existing community centre buildings would realise a significant saving to the building cost of the new facility, and it is with this principle now established that designs and costings are being finalised. The end of REBA Stage 2 is weeks away, and at that point we will have finalised the facility mix, prepared an architectural concept and obtained pre-application planning advice. Consultation to date, to remind members, has taken place over 4 phases. First, the sports and leisure consultation, which happened in November-December 2020, using finance that was first put forward in the February 2020 capital budget, which demonstrated that there was support for the development of a new sport and leisure facility at Bransbury Park to replace Eastney Swimming Pool and Wimbledon Park Sports Centre. The majority of respondents strongly agreed with the proposal to use the money that would maintain Eastney Swimming Pool and Wimbledon Park Sports Centre as they are on a new facility at Bransbury Park. That was 63% in support. Sports and leisure users consultation in February and March 2021, which provided insight into current patterns of usage of leisure facilities and in-depth consultation with residents, councillors and user groups around their likeliness to use a new facility. The majority of respondents were likely to visit overall, 78%, with over half selecting that they are very likely, 56%, with just some 13% of respondents in total reported that they would be unlikely to visit to some extent, with 8% selecting very unlikely in a number of instances, as far as I understand it, purely because this is not something that they do, in inverted commas. A further 9% of respondents selected neither likely nor unlikely. This also provided insight into how users would travel to the facility. 76% said that they would walk or cycle, 19% said they would come by car, and 3% by bus. And the obvious concerns raised around parking and any change to the open space and traffic issues. Thirdly, Spring It On community drop-in event, which happened in March of this year, gave insight into residents' views on the proposal and reinforced many of the outcomes from earlier consultations. 66% would use the centre, 17% would not, 77% would walk or cycle, 16% would come by car, 4% by bus. Notably extremely similar to the entirely separate piece of consultation that had previously been done. This consultation also made it clear that residents did feel it was very important for the facility to include a learner pool. That was 69% of the feedback, and therefore it is absolutely back as part of the core of those proposals. The community centre survey is taking place now and is ongoing and looks to understand what activities residents would like to see from any community element of the facility. The survey closes on the 11th of December 2022. Results will be available in January. This work was co-designed with Eastney Community Association and will be important to helping them to focus on activity on what the community wish to see on offer in their buildings, as well as highlighting any elements better catered for within the new leisure centre. Finally, there will be a final phase of consultation with councillors and the community prior to planning submission in the spring, and this question at full councillors preempted a report that will come to portfolio in the new year to include this update now that we have some certainty around the key areas and to define how that new consultation will take place.
Thank you, Councillor Pitt. Councillor Fielding, your first supplementary, please.
Firstly, can I thank the Cabinet Member for that very thorough report. However, does the Cabinet Member agree that the closure of 2 public swimming pools in the south of the city prior to any meaningful progress on the Bransbury Park site was short-sighted?
Councillor Pitt.
No, Lord Mayor, I do not believe it was short-sighted, because there are some key issues that, again, if members appraise themselves of the information, reports are in the public domain. There was never a plan to close Eastney Swimming Pool. until the feasibility work, which members knew about because it was in the capital budget programme as early as February 2020, and before we had experienced the storm event, where the MP for Portsmouth South was actually present when the roof of the Eastleigh swimming pool was lifting off in a storm. So that was what prompted all of that building survey to happen, and unfortunately the huge level of financial investment that would have been required in order to shore up an aged facility. It's a leisure centre, Lord Mayor, supposed to be catering for the next generation. That's what we should be looking at. Where are young people going to learn to swim? What are we going to do for them? To have thrown millions more just to prop it up because it is ultimately a failing building would have been folly. That was all played out in the public domain at the time. However, it is a disappointment that it didn't hang on in there long enough for us to be able to complete the work on Bransbury. We are where we are. We are pursuing this now as fast as we possibly can. I've given you a timetable for the early part of next year. So there was no short-sightedness. It wasn't a mistake. It was an unfortunate occurrence that where everyone knew the clock was ticking on that building. That's why there was money in the capital budget to look at the feasibility of replacing it. So it was anticipated. We didn't know just how soon it was coming. But what I can tell you, Deputy Lord Mayor, is when I became the Cabinet Member in 2018 and went to look at that building, there was a net hanging from the ceiling to stop debris from falling in the pool. So quite clearly, this neglect had gone on for just too long. The replacement building hadn't been accelerated fast enough. It needed to be looked at, and independent consultants that were advising the council gave us a very clear indication of what the need was likely to be. I would also point to the fact that had we kept the pyramids open, bearing in mind that the BH Live contract was expired and therefore the building was the liability of the council, on top of the £700,000 a year that it was losing at that point, with rising energy costs, the estimate on that awful building being used as a swimming pool would have been £1.4 million on this council's budget this year. We absolutely made the right decision with the pyramids. It was the right thing to do because the money needed to replace it and invest in it is not, despite what you might read on some people's leaflets, the money that's being spent on Bransbury. It's more than double that. And there are realistic envelopes that we have to work within. We have identified the site, having investigated alternatives. We found the right location. We're now coming to a point where we will come back for a final round of consultation, and I absolutely and unequivocally stand by the decisions that we've made because they're the right decisions for the residents of this city and the future residents of this city. It is not the business of a council to be run a swimming pool that's more like a museum than a leisure centre.
Thank you, Councillor Pitt. Councillor Fielding, do you have a second supplementary?
Thank you again, Cabinet Member, for your response to that question. Finally, is the Cabinet Member concerned that the ongoing delay on the redevelopment of Bransbury Park and the spiralling costs and slimmed down facilities could end up with the project being totally unaffordable, further extending the length of time until we have a public swimming pool in the south of the city?
Councillor Pitt.
It's fascinating to hear the hears from my Conservative opposition spokesperson on this. Obviously, there's an outbreaking of agreement between Labour and the Conservatives on this issue again. The simple answer to that question, Deputy Lord Mayor, is no.
Thank you, Councillor Pitt. Councillor Norton.
Can the Deputy Leader, Cabinet Member, he's not Deputy Leader, is he? Given his commitment to the Green Agenda, can the Cabinet Member advise where he suggests parents in the south of the city take their children to swim whilst he gets his house in order?
Councillor Pitt.
Asked and answered, Deputy Lord Mayor.
I didn't catch that, Councillor.
I gave a very thorough brief on exactly where we are and the situation we are in. I am assuming that Councillor Norton, Deputy Lord Mayor, is aware of the Mountbatten Centre. Hopefully he's also aware of the contract that we have with Charter Academy, which is available evenings and weekends for use through BH Live, and that he may also be aware of the community memberships at the Ravelin Sports Centre that Portsmouth University have recently opened, and they are still taking on community members there. So there are opportunities to swim in the city, including at Mountbatten, and I think we should actually celebrate that Portsmouth is one of very few councils that's retained free swimming for the under-12s. A really important ongoing commitment that different administrations have continued to support. Yes, it's difficult. Of course it's difficult. I've explained why it is undesirable to be in this situation. But I'm a pragmatist and a realist, and we are where we are.
Thank you, Councillor Pitt. I have no further indicators for that one. So that's the end of question 1. Question 2 I have for Councillor Scott Pater-Harris to be answered by Councillor Steve Pitt.
No, thank you, Lord Mayor, and I just need a written answer from this. I've already spoken to Councillor Pitt prior to the meeting, and I'm happy to take a written answer.
Just supply that, Lord Mayor.
Well, question 3 then.
Deputy Lord Mayor, since the relevant Cabinet member is not present, I'm willing to accept a written answer for question 3 as well, if that's sufficient.
Lord Mayor, because this is on the order paper, I think it's important that I am able to give a response, because no, I don't think the standing orders, I think, allow me to answer.
Councillor Van-Jackson, I'm afraid. As a written answer has been requested, that's what's going to be. Just thank you. Councillor Madden.
Well, generally, the standing orders say that when you address the Lord Mayor, you stand up. 3 Conservatives already have not stood up. Could you make sure that the standing orders are complied with, Lord Mayor?
Thank you, Councillor Madden. Members, please. Let's get through this. Come on. So we're going. Don't make me go the full John Burkow. Question 4, Councillor Bosher, to be answered by Councillor Stagg. Councillor Bosher, please.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. I come from the days of Elaine Baker, when she used to stand up, you couldn't tell. Question number 4, standing in my name.
Thank you, Councillor Bosher. Councillor Stagg.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. The Council has a set process for the prioritisation of roads where a speed survey has been requested. Along with the 85th percentile speed, that is the speed at which 85% or more of the vehicles travel at or below the speed limit, there are casualties, slight, serious and fatal, and the environment surrounding the roads all taken into account. And each of these factors is then put onto a spreadsheet. All of the data that is required to make the decision about each of the roads is scored and is contained within the spreadsheet. Sorry, I've got bits and pieces here. An overview of the information is given in the Traffic and Transportation Committee Feasibility Study Report, and separate data is also published for individual schemes when their reports are brought to committee. On average, the Safer Travel team receive 2 to 3 requests for speed surveys or traffic calming measures every week, meaning that the speed survey priorities are a live document. At the time of this meeting, the 4 of the 5 highest priority sites, and they are Highbury Grove, Langston Road, Lower Farlington Road, New Road and Talbot Road, Devonshire Avenue, that have been surveyed, all either have funding allocated to develop schemes or at the top of the list for the next round of future funding. But I want to stress here that the speed survey process is a live document and therefore it's always changing. And speed surveys are carried out throughout the year, and therefore if a survey shows that there is a priority speeding problem in one particular road, then consideration will be given to putting this at the top of the list for future funding. Now, the 5 roads, because to answer your question, yes, I did see the information before making the decision. Highbury Grove had a total score of 60, and I believe ward councillors agreed with officers that they would use SIL money to introduce VAS signs, vehicle-activated signs. Talbot Road, Devonshire Avenue, total score 75, and that's to be addressed as part of the active Pompey neighbourhood. And that's coming into Councillor Peter Scott's last question to me. But I will point out here that not all the casualties in Devonshire Avenue and Talbot Road are speed related. They are very often, more often than not, related to driver behaviour or pedestrian behaviour. New Road had a total score of 75, and proposals are going to be taken forward as part of the LTP for the New Road East Junction, which is a dangerous one. There have been casualties there, and that will depend on capital funding. And Lower Farlington Road, total score of 60, speed surveys are undertaken in September 2022, so thereafter most of the others will progress as a priority going forward within the LTP budget. Dependent on capital bid funding. Langston Road, which had a total score of 60, speed surveys were undertaken in February 2022, and the scheme design was already progressing ahead of speed surveys being undertaken late for some of the later areas, such as Farlington Road above. So, to answer your question, yes, I did look at scoring for other areas, and the limit for the top limit or the bottom limit for high priority is 60. So anything from 60 or over is high priority.
Thank you, Councillor Stagg. Councillor Bosher, can I have your first supplementary, please?
Thank you very much, Deputy Lord Mayor, and thank you very much to Spreadsheet Lynn over there. The short answer to my question is, did you have any additional information when making your decision? The answer was yes. You've just quoted from a spreadsheet that it took 3 weeks after your decision meeting for me to get a copy of from your office.
Through the chair, please, Councillor
And
Bosher.
it wasn't included in your decision-making ability. Could you explain to me why the spreadsheet you just referred to was not included as part of your decision-making pack, and also why did it take over 3 weeks for your officers to provide that information that I legitimately requested?
Thank you, Councillor Bosher. Councillor Stagg.
Yes, I think Felicity apologised for that. It was an inadvertent. It was not meant to be left out. I think it was a different officer, new officer maybe. I'm not sure of the details. And I didn't know that you weren't aware of it until the actual decision meeting. So apologies for that, and it won't happen again. There was no intention of hiding it from you. It is in the public domain.
Thank you, Councillor Stagg. Councillor Bosher, your second supplementary, please.
Thank you very much, Deputy Lord Mayor. And again, I think the Cabinet member has completely missed my point. When the decision was taken on the 20th of October to put Langston Road in your ward as the priority road, it was based on a spreadsheet that showed the scoring mechanism that the Cabinet member has just been through, that didn't appear in the pack to justify the decision she was taking, and it subsequently has still not appeared despite being requested. A different report has subsequently been added, and my point, Deputy Lord Mayor, is that it does not promote openness and transparency as far as the decision making is concerned. And would the Cabinet member therefore agree with me that when making decisions of this nature, it should include all the information to enable the general public to see the decision that is being taken at the time of your decision-making meeting, and if it is not available, then that decision should be deferred for a future meeting?
Thank you, Councillor Bosher. Councillor Stagg.
Yes, I mean, I totally agree that it should have been there, and it was inadvertent. I had seen it myself, so I have to admit that I did not go through the whole lot again just before the meeting, but I had actually seen it beforehand. So apologies, I can't say any more than that. It was somebody, just hadn't been checked by whoever was overseeing the actual paper, and that's apologies. Well, I don't know, that's what I was told.
Thank you, Councillor Stagg. I have Councillor Matthew Atkins indicating.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I would like to, through you, thank the Cabinet member for recognising that Highbury Grove is a priority road on the statistics, and I would also like to thank her for rejecting the vexatious and late attempt by our ward colleague, Councillor Shah, to block our VAS cameras for Highbury Grove. But can I ask, so given we were not told that it was a priority road until after we'd submitted our application. Will the Cabinet member now commit to funding the VAS cameras from central funds rather than needing to rely on SIL funds, given it is a priority road via her central information?
I can't in all honesty guarantee that, because I don't know how much money, we have not yet put in our capital bids. I don't know how much money will be there.
Thank you, Councillor Stagg. I have no one else indicating on that question. So we'll move to question... Oh, you've got a couple come up there. You're lucky there, Councillor Heaney. Please.
Apologies for that, Deputy Lord. I was trying to get my finger on the button. I'd just like to ask a question to follow up from what Councillor Bosher said. I am concerned that when I see reports that come to the Traffic and Transportation portfolio, we don't always get the evidence and reasoning behind the recommendations. And I'd like to quote one example. On the 22nd of September, we received a report on the Rainbow Corner Nursery. I spoke to the owner of that, and I'm aware of the problems that they have had. But the recommendations and the reasons for it don't have any facts or arguments or even a sense of where the prioritisation lies within this particular scheme. And I did ask that question at the cabinet member meeting, but I didn't receive an answer. And I said, where does this sit within the priority of schemes? There's nothing in the report to say where it sits within the priority of schemes, whether it's the top one or whatever. And this is, I think, one of the concerns we have. It's very difficult to get a sense of how some decisions are made on the basis of the evidence. So I wonder if the cabinet member could agree that these reports do need to be more detailed so that we understand, because we're not in day-to-day contact with officers, the reasoning behind the decisions made.
Thank you, Councillor Heaney. Councillor Stagg.
Well, as I said, you should have had the spreadsheet, you should have had the information. The priority on speed was Langston Road. That had the high speed, which shocked me. It was over 30 miles an hour, 31 miles an hour, I think, and that's the 85th percentile. So that did surprise me. Others have come up higher because of accidents and so on and so forth. But yes, it should have been there. I've said it should have been there. I can't say it any different way. It should have been there, and I've made sure that the officers in future make sure that any information like that is put in there, and I can't say any more. I can go down on my hands and knees and bow and scrape, whatever, but I can't say any more than that is what will happen. It shouldn't have happened the way it did, and it's now been put in, hopefully, in corrected, or it will be corrected in the future. Anybody else want any more definitions of it will be done in...
That's my job.
Are you sure? Because I can stand here and do them all. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stagg. Councillor Shah.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Actually, just I wanted to comment on my ward colleague.
Is this a point of order?
Yes. Yeah. It's point of order, yeah.
Do you know which point of order you're speaking on?
39, so 39. B. So it's not a debate, just I wanted to clarify, I never blocked VAS. I said that is the least, the feedback I got from my residents through schools, they were saying that was not the option we should be going for. And I said we need to go for the best option, which was...
Excuse me, Councillor Shah. A point of order over here. Councillor Bosher.
Standing Order 39B. A member who has spoken on any question may make a short explanation. Well, I've spoken on a question. Councillor Shah hasn't, so he can't use 39B. And secondly, this is members' questions to the Cabinet. It's not about making party political statements to non-Cabinet members across the chamber, and therefore I would ask that Councillor Shah sits down.
I believe Councillor Shah has made the correction. Okay? Is that right?
I want to correct actually what my colleague said.
Unfortunately, because of 39B, you have to have spoken already on an item. So, as per the standing orders.
Oral questions by members. It is not really acceptable for members to make accusations without evidence towards other members in this council chamber and then deny them the opportunity to respond. This is a public venue that is publicly recorded, and if you make an accusation that a member has done something and they are not able to reply, then that possible misrepresentation is allowed to go out into the public domain. I think it was very unfortunate that Councillor Matthew Atkins decided to do that, but maybe he did it deliberately. And I would ask that Councillor Shah be given an opportunity to respond. Lord Mayor. I'm referring to standing order on oral questions.
1 minute. Councillor Heaney, you're indicating again. Right. Councillor Shah, had you finished making your point, which would be under 39A and not 39B? I'll let you get it off your chest.
Sorry, just the point actually I wanted to make is my colleague, ward colleague said I blocked, I never blocked. Number two, the options which residents went for and they voted for, or the feedback I gathered through schools, that wasn't the option to go for. So I said, I think we need to discuss this further, what is the best for the residents of Cosham. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shah. Councillor Peter Harris.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Sorry, back to you, the cabinet member. Listen, I just want to talk about the hybrid grove that you mentioned earlier about the VAS signs. We've just heard some toing and froing on that. Would you agree that they are quite a suitable tool to negate speeding in the area, unlike what some of the comments I've heard today so far?
I have mixed feelings about VAS signs. They work sometimes, they don't at other times. On roads where you've got lots of people coming in from outside the area, they tend to work better. If it's a local road, local people know there's nothing going to be done about it, so they're ignoring them. However, having done a site visit with Councillor Shah and with Councillor Heaney up to Highbury Grove, looking at the width of the road there and the fact that there are lots of dropped curbs, and then talking to officers back here, the possibility they would have to put full, because of the width of the road, fully wide speed humps, not cushions, and that would cost, I can't remember how much they quoted, but it was somewhere in the region of £200,000 for the 3 roads, something like that anyway. So there's the difficulty, because the reality of putting them in makes it prohibitive, and then people, if you have full width, you've got a problem because of the cost. If you have just cushions, people, because of the width of the road, they'll go between them, so they won't have an effect. Okay. So, and can I just say that as I found out afterwards that the decision had been made before Councillor Shah was elected as a councillor. So I don't think he was blocking.
Thank you, Councillor Stagg. Councillor Heaney, have you asked a supplementary? You're indicating to speak. And Councillor Lee Mason.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. Would the Cabinet member please thank our staff for the diligent work they have done, working with us as ward councillors for a long period of time and supporting us, and that they could confirm that after the election of the more recent councillor, it was asked to go back to redesign. There was attempts to block it, and we are grateful that you have seen sense and pursued it. And would you please confirm that this will actually help people, and if we'd had it put through earlier, it could have actually helped a lot more people in advance?
Councillor Stagg.
I think last month I said I wasn't a clairvoyant. I'm exactly in the same position this month as I was last month. I can't tell you if it's going to work or not. I'm not a clairvoyant. I hope it will.
Thank you, Councillor Stagg. We move on to question 5, I think. Question 6? Question 5. Councillor Smith, did you...
Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Stagg.
It's me again. Right, the plastic discs, Councillor Smith, are actually sensors. They're not just bits of plastic. They're put in by a company called Appy Parking, and it's using an app, and you could actually use the app to find out where there were spare spaces to park. The idea was to cut down the amount of travelling around people spent looking for parking spaces. Unfortunately, they were put in just before lockdown came about, so they didn't actually go well, they did work, but of course not many people were around, were they, travelling? So that's it. So the whole thing has been sort of left to one side, because in between what has happened is we've had new IT system that affects the parking area. New legislation has come in about parking, and the officers, our parking manager has been so under the cosh because we're so short of staff that he hasn't got round to doing anything about it. But he's on the case now to recontact the company to see if they can proceed as it is, or is there a better way of doing it. But the whole scheme, the idea behind the scheme was a good one, because it was to cut down on emissions and people just wandering around.
Thank you, Councillor Stagg. Councillor Smith, your first supplementary, please.
So when will we see something? I think it was and going to, but so when are we going to see something take place?
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Stagg.
When the parking manager has been in contact with Appy Parking, as I've just said, to negotiate to see if the scheme that was already put in would work, or whether there would be a better one. So, again, I'm not clairvoyant, but as soon as it's possible, it'll be done.
Thank you, Councillor Stagg. Councillor Smith, your second supplementary, please.
For this scheme that hasn't actually gone live yet, what is the cost of installation? I hear another company's done it. Also, is there a cost to the council in terms of administration? And eventually, when it does come out, after it's been very successful, I'm sure, what will the removal cost be?
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Stagg.
Cost has been nothing. The company paid for it all installation. They will remove it if that is what is to be decided.
Thank you, Councillor Stagg. Councillor Peter Harris, please.
Thank you. Just for clarity for Councillor Madden, I am standing. On this issue,
it's hard to tell.
You never know. I could be standing. I could not be. Just on the clarity for this question. So, for example, it sounds like that we're going to be driving around and then trying to find a space while on our phones. Is there clearly a conflict here between someone looking for a parking space and being on their phone at the same time? Are we encouraging people to use their phones while they're driving? Because that's what it seems like to me from a rational person. But can the Cabinet Member clarify?
Thank you, Councillor Peter Harris. Councillor Stagg.
I haven't actually seen the app in progress, but I wouldn't have thought we would have promoted a suicide system. So I don't think there will be the necessity to use your phone. I would think there'd be something like a voice, like you get from sat-navs. But I don't know for sure. But I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be suicide moves.
Thank you, Councillor Stagg. I'd be mindful of language when speaking in a public forum, because that could be quite triggering to some people. Councillor Weems, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Deputy Lord Mayor. I just wondered if the Cabinet Member knows what the lifespan of each disc is and how they are disposed of. Are they recyclable or are they just burnt?
Thank you, Councillor Weems. Councillor Stagg.
I don't know, and this is one of the things that they're going to be testing, whether the batteries are still working. in them, because if they are still working and the technology is there to carry on, they could carry on. I should imagine, and again I don't know, I've not asked about what happens to them at the end, but I would think that they would be recycled. You can recycle batteries, you can recycle plastic. I would hope so, and that would be something I would press for.
Thank you, Councillor Stagg. Councillor Matthew Winnington, please.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Would the Cabinet agree with me that if the Conservative members of the of this chamber wish to understand how API parking works, that they perhaps ask their colleagues in Westminster, where I believe API parking was used for many years, and therefore they would find out exactly how it works when it is fully installed and working properly, including, hopefully, not being at risk to their people using them every day.
Thank you, Councillor Wellington. Councillor Stagg.
I would agree. Thank you.
Councillor Bosher.
Thank you very much, Deputy Lord Mayor. And to Councillor Matthew Winnington, in the absence of any members from Westminster up here, we're asking the relevant person, who happens to be the Cabinet Member for Traffic and Transportation, who's sat over there, who simply hasn't really answered any of the questions. There were several issues that were actually raised there. Councillor Williams has raised the question of the battery life. Answer, don't know. Using a mobile phone when driving around looking for a parking space, not sure on that. Will the Cabinet Member, before we go live with this system, carry out a thorough investigation and ask these questions, which probably should have been asked pre-COVID, I would suspect, and bring back a full report to a future Traffic and Transportation Cabinet meeting, so we can have clarity on whether this system is safe and has a lifespan?
Thank you, Councillor Bosher. Councillor Stagg.
I've given you the information that I have at the moment. The whole thing has been in abeyance for nearly 3 years. There was no possibility when it was first promoted or suggested of using a mobile phone, that it would be the app itself which would come through on something like SatNav. Have you got something, Susie? Right. But I will ask.
Sharing information in the chamber, Deputy Lord Mayor, we're now being told we have to Google. Common sense.
Members.
But I will find out all the answers to the questions, Councillor Bosher, and I will do them today and let you know, everybody.
Thank you, Councillor Stagg. There's no further indicators on that question, so we'll go to question 6, which is Councillor Smythe, to be answered by Councillor Pitt. Councillor Smythe, please.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. The question is, why did Portsmouth fail to attract additional investment from the Arts Council National Portfolio Organisation Awards in the recent round? In other words, for the year starting 2023, in which Southampton got 2.3 million and we got 421,000 per year.
Thank you, Councillor Smythe. Councillor Pitt.
Yeah, that's not the question that was on the order paper, Deputy Lord Mayor, but I will do my best to answer. Although, very unusually, I think members will appreciate, I am finding this question a little bit awkward, because the question, as on the order paper, is why did Portsmouth fail to attract additional investment from Arts Council National Portfolio Organisation Awards in the recent round? Almost all of that information is the intellectual private property of the organisations who made the applications, and I don't feel that it's appropriate for me to speak on their behalf in this meeting, in a public meeting. I don't have their permission to share the contents of their bids, nor their feedback that they would have received from the Arts Council. So it's slightly difficult, but I'm going to attempt to give you an answer that I think I can give you. You'll have appreciated that the investment from the Arts Council, as announced in this funding round, did, at least as far as the Arts Council are concerned, actually increase by approximately 12% from 376,000 to 421,000 for their next 3-year period. I'll come back to why that's important in a minute. Members will, I'm sure, be aware of the fact the National Portfolio Funding Round is an extremely competitive process. This year there were around 1,700 applications for 1,100 awards. It's, I think, the highest level of demand that they've ever had, and therefore it was inevitable that there were going to be a lot of disappointments. Some applicants inevitably make a stronger case to support than others, which is true of all places, not just Portsmouth. The funding landscape and the priorities as outlined by Arts Council England were very clear this time, and they included a specific emphasis on encouraging London-based organisations to take their work to different parts of the country. Deputy Lord Mayor, this is something that I have huge concerns about. I understand what it's trying to do, but this was the pet project of former Secretary of State Nadine Dorris, who I don't think I'm compromising the Nolan principles to say is not somebody that I have a terrible amount of respect for in terms of the way that she operated in that cabinet position, because clearly threatening organisations based in the capital that if you don't move, you're losing your funding, as we've seen with the English National Opera, with national petitions about that now, was a rather divisive way to try and level up the arts. And also, to have another organisation, and I've encountered a few that have approached me directly, just march into Portsmouth and say, I thought I could witter on as long as I wanted to, Deputy Lord Mayor, on this. Is that not right? Is it the 45 minutes? Do I get to sit down and shut up?
Yes. If you finished your answer.
I can finish if you'd like me to, Lord. I'm in your hands, Deputy Lord Mayor. It's your meeting. You'd like me to finish? Okay. Obviously it's been a very contentious funding round. I'll try and keep it briefer. So the funding landscape, the priorities outlined by Arts Council England were very clear this time. There was this emphasis about moving out of London into other parts of the country. We have been seeing it. I do have concerns if it's only happening to keep funding. The increase in the MPO funding that I referred to earlier is part of an allocation due to an organisation called Crying Out Loud, who specialise in visual theatre, circus and installation work, and apparently they will be establishing a base in Portsmouth to develop a new programme of work for both the city and the wider Solent area. As the organisation are as yet unknown to us, we very much look forward to working with them as they try to establish themselves here. In this context, it is right to recognise the significant contribution the Council has made to a range of cultural organisations across the city, and recognise that despite pressures of funding, we have continued to maintain revenue grants to them ongoing. I'm paraphrasing now to save time for you. The most important thing, in discussing the situation with Arts Council South England South West Director Phil Gibby, he recently has said, and I quote, Arts Council England is very committed to working with Portsmouth City Council going forward. I expressed great upset at the fact that we had not been more successful in the MPO round, but I can announce to full council this afternoon that I have a written confirmation from Mr Gibby that the £250,000 that was held over from Arts Council England's MPO award to the New Theatre Royal, that when they didn't meet their criteria and they had their difficulties which are played out in the public domain, were a remnant from that MPO grant, that money is ring-fenced for Portsmouth. So there's absolute confirmation from Mr Gibby. I'm not going to stop there. There's other funds that I believe through the Arts Council we can access. Phil spent the entire day in the city around the We Shine Festival, was very impressed by what he saw, and we're going to continue to very much make the case for what a special place Portsmouth is and how amazing its artistic and creative community is. Thank you.
Ask for a written reply to the two supplementaries I had. Not now, not now.
Members. That brings us to the end of today's meeting. I'd like to thank you all for being gentle with me on my first time. And before you all go, it's Stuart Aglin's last full council. So I think a round of applause for Stuart for all the work he's done over the years. Do you want to make a speech? Oh, yeah. As this is the last meeting of the year, I'd like to wish you all a very happy Christmas and a new year, and I invite members back to the parlour for festive refreshments on the Lord Mayor. Thank you, members.